call to order the May 1st, 2023 Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners work session. Welcome, everyone. First item is the approval of the work session agenda. I would like to request one addition to that, and that is to add item 4.23, general discussion by the board. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda with the changes on page 3 and the addition of item 4.23?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And we move to discussion items that do not require action. First up is item 3.1 from Active Living and Parks, a marketing presentation, and welcome Londa and Jacob.
Well, my only role is to introduce Jacob. Jacob is the park manager at Camp Spencer Park. He's been with us a little over a year. He is currently enrolled in graduate school at NC State in park recreation, tourism, sports management.
Yes, perfect.
Curriculum, and he was assigned a project on doing a marketing plan. He and his partner, who couldn't be here today, had a little mix-up. He thought it was going to be virtual, and so he's a park ranger at Lake Norman State Park. And we have seen this presentation. They've done a wonderful job, and I wanted them to share it with you. It has a lot of really good points in it, and they've done a great job, and I just wanted him to show you all a little bit of what we do and how they've worked in trying to come up with that. So I'll give it all to Jacob. I'll even get out of his way.
Thank you, Londa. Okay. So yeah, Colton unfortunately was not able to join us. He works at Lake Norman State Park, which isn't too far away, but enjoyed working on this project with him. I told him next time he can do one, or we can do one together that benefits the state parks. So he was generous to help me out with this one. So yeah, we're both attending NC State. We're halfway through. We'll graduate a year from now. So we both love what we do with parks in different capacities, but still we love it, and we're trying to take our careers to the next level. So that's what we're doing, and trying to further our education. So our program is a mouthful: parks, recreation, tourism, and sports management. Each class we take is also a mouthful. So the class we did this project for was called Strategic Marketing for Parks, Recreation, Tourism. That's repetitive, but strategic marketing essentially. So we were tasked, it's a 7-week course, so double speed of a normal college course. So it moves quick. We had 7 weeks to put a marketing plan together for the entity of our choice. So you could either make one up, you could do an existing one, you could do one in your own department. We chose, again, to do one for the Active Living and Parks Department, focusing specifically on the Active Living Centers. So if anybody in here might not know what an Active Living Center is, it's a senior center, essentially a senior recreation facility. So we have, with Cabarrus County, 2 Active Living Centers currently. That name we're kind of moving into, so I'll touch on that a little bit later. But we have 2. We've got the one in Concord, just a couple blocks away from here, down on Corbin Avenue. And then the other one is towards Mount Pleasant, downtown Mount Pleasant. But then over the next several years, we'll build 2 more. One will take the place of the current one in Mount Pleasant and be combined with a library. And then the other one will be towards Afton Ridge and also be combined with a library. So looking forward to those. So the goal of this plan is to kind of get the department thinking about how we need to improve our marketing. Senior citizen demographic can be a harder one to market to. Whereas, say, my age, or between 20 and 45-ish, you're maybe 50, 55, you're on social media, you're watching TV, things like that. Sometimes the senior citizens aren't as in tune on social media, so it can be harder to reach them. Any ideas kind of what the main marketing tools that work for seniors are? Maybe the top one? Anything? Newspaper, that was touched on in a survey we did. Any others? Television, not quite as successful, honestly. We haven't put a ton of ads on TV, to be honest with you, but what's the main one, maybe across all demographics, that works? Word of mouth. Word of mouth is, very, very important, not just for seniors, but in a survey we did that we'll touch on, it was far and away the most important reason that folks have heard about what we do, our services here with the county. So, if you think about it, you're a whole lot more in tune, a whole lot more likely to go to a restaurant if your friend, your family member has recommended it to you than if you see a TV commercial, right? So in order to get those word of mouth recommendations, it requires the service, the product, the experience to be excellent. Whatever it takes you to become a raving fan of something, it needs to be there if you're going to go tell people about it, right? You're not just going to tell people if it was mediocre. So we'll get there in a little bit, but the amount of word of mouth recommendations that have led to folks coming to our facilities is very high. That means, they're doing a great job. So we'll get into it a little bit, but let's dive in. Oh, thank you. All right, so sorry, very small print. When marketing to seniors, that's probably the number one thing. You need the print to be big enough for them to see, so my apologies. So Cabarrus County's active living centers are the premier place for older adults to recreate and find their place. So some of the services down the left: fitness, education, community involvement, finding friends. We also want to see seniors live independent lives and stay out of institutional care as long as possible. We want people to be, live free, live in your own home without, relying on institutional care. So again, if you can squint and see our team, that's myself and Colton. Here's a map of our current facilities that are, the orange ones are our current active living facilities. So the one there in the middle, right above the word Concord, is the Concord Active Living Center. And then the one up towards the top right would be the Mount Pleasant one. And thank you. This might be, yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. The ones in blue, the markers in blue, will be the future facilities, roughly where they're going to be. So the Mount Pleasant will be kind of right down the street from the current one. And then the Afton Ridge will be, towards Afton and Target and that region towards 85. So just kind of a map of where we are and kind of where we're going to be. We'll have a strip there across the county of active living facilities for seniors to choose from. All right, so I hit on kind of an introduction. The main thing I want to hit on here is a stat that says by 2030, so just 6.5 years now, by 2030, every baby boomer will be age 65 or older. So that means 1 out of every 5 U.S. citizens will be of retirement age. So 20% will be of retirement age by 2030. So Cabarrus County is committed to reaching that need, and these new facilities coming on board are going to go a long way to that. Our mission statement as a department: to enrich the quality of life for persons of all ages and abilities. We do this by providing high-quality recreation, education, and social opportunities. These opportunities are in harmony with natural resource preservation. So that's kind of where the parks as well kind of come into it. But throughout this presentation, towards the bottom of the screen, you may see a quote. Those quotes aren't something I made up. They're from our real patrons, our real participants. So this one says, "I enjoy the kind and caring people." And you'll see some powerful quotes as we go through. So a situational analysis is something in a marketing plan that pretty much the entity takes a deep look at itself, finds out what it's doing well and what it's not doing so well, as well as what some opportunities are, as well as some threats. So I'll move a little quicker. I won't hit every single point. It's a lot of text, I know. I condensed this down, but it's still a little thick. But some strengths, our facilities are a big strength. I understand some of y'all got to go on a tour of the Concord Active Living Center just a week or two ago, and you got to see a little bit of their facilities and a lot of multi-use spaces, classrooms, conference rooms, the billiards room, the fitness room, conference rooms. Out back, you've got the shuffleboard, you've got the bocce, you've got the walking trail back there. That's a beautiful trail if you haven't walked it. So great facilities. Mount Pleasant has also some very versatile multi-purpose rooms. That's essentially the extent of it at this time. You can do a lot of different things in there, and there are a couple of rooms out there. So great strengths on facilities, very versatile. Our main strength I would say would be our staff. We employ a lot of credentialed, passionate, professionals who they care about what they do from the moment a senior or a patron walks into the active living center. They are taken great care of, whether that's a facility tour or getting signed up for the first time, or somebody that's been with us for 10 years. They're treated the same. They're treated like family, and they walk out the door like they've been taken care of. They had a memorable experience and an impactful experience. So another quote there at the bottom: "It has been a fantastic time with the instructors and the employees." So again, our clients love our facilities. Some more strengths, I'll hit on these quickly. Cleanliness. A clean recreation center is an inviting one. Somebody that, if you're a member of a gym, you want the gym to be clean, or you feel like it's not taken care of. So we do a great job. We've got a full-time custodial crew. They keep it looking good. Senior games and silver arts, stuff that's going on right now. That's a huge strength of ours. The team at Active Living Centers do a great job. They coordinate the Cabarrus senior games and silver arts. So they reach out to the different local entities, whether that's Concord, Harrisburg, all the other ones, to put it together. So senior games are kind of an Olympic-style athletic event, where 2 months or so long, where there's different athletic competitions throughout those 2 months. Track and field, shuffleboard, you name it, mini golf. There's tons of different games. But if you're not into athletics, there's the silver arts, which is more of your fine arts, your paintings, your singing, your acting. Last week, we hosted the Silver Arts Follies in Kannapolis. Maybe some of you had a chance to go. It was my first time going. I was on the hot dog crew at the concession stand. But in between my hot dog serving time, I got to go in and see the Follies for the first time. Got to see a comedian, got to see some cheerleaders, got to see somebody sing Elvis. And the crowd the whole time, I just sitting back. It was just me. My wife wasn't there or anything, but I looked around, and the seniors that were in attendance, they were having a ball. They were smiling from ear to ear and laughing, having a good time. I texted my wife. I said, Cabarrus County is a great place to be a senior. And it really is. They were all having a blast. So just know that, this team is doing a great job. Some more strengths: accessible price point. We have very professional level classes, but they're either free or they cost about $3.50 per class. That is because we want them to be accessible for, with our mission statement, for all people of all ages, abilities, incomes. We don't just want to be priced up here and then, price people out of the market. We want it to be accessible, and we do a great job with that. Keep it moving. A couple weaknesses we have. Though facilities are a strength, they are also a weakness. With the Concord Active Living facility, some of the rooms, though there are a lot of rooms, they're kind of small, so it limits our class size, which puts people on a waiting list, and nobody wants to be on a waiting list. We want to accommodate more people if possible, but that's kind of where we stand now. Staffing limitations. As great as our department is at promoting from within and encouraging further education and a team-centered, team-oriented focus, we haven't been immune to the global staffing issues that we see at every place you come to, whether fast food or anywhere. We've still have had troubles here and there at recruiting and retaining talented staff. Another weakness is we have a lack of marketing prowess. Our main marketers currently are our facility managers. That's kind of a back burner task right now of our facility managers. They're juggling so many things, supervising people, making sure the facility is clean and well kept. They don't get to market so much. So I think we're missing out on a lot of clientele because we don't get to market as effectively as we could and should. So the use of a position like an outreach specialist would go a long way to helping us reach more people strategically. That's the key. We throw a lot of different things out there, but not everything sticks, and we don't all the time know what sticks because we don't get to spend quite enough time on it because we've got our other tasks. But another thing an outreach specialist could do is more stuff kind of like this and help us have a focus and a goal to reach for. Some opportunities we have: increased social media use. Social media is the future of marketing. It's kind of the current as well, but as more people age into the senior demographic, they'll have brought their tech savviness with them, I guess. So say when we serve clients 50 and better is what we like to say, so 50 and up. The more people that graduate into that, they'll probably more likely to be using social media. So increased social media use is going to be a big tool for us in the future. Another opportunity, obviously, is new facilities coming on board in the next several years. So the Afton, the Mount Pleasant, those are going to bring a lot of hype. They're going to bring a lot of awareness to what we do, and we're going to try and ride that momentum as well as we can, but we need to market well for it. Another opportunity is growth there at the bottom. Cabarrus expects to see a 20% growth in the next year due to businesses coming to the area, Charlotte expanding northward, and that brings jobs, that brings more seniors, that brings more need for facilities like ours. You see a quote there at the bottom? Somebody said, "I love it. It's the best thing I could have joined." So that's what we like to hear. Some threats to what we do. So one threat is missing out on current trends. Recreation is a trendy thing sometimes. If anybody in here plays pickleball, has heard of pickleball, it's become all the rage. Everybody loves pickleball. I started playing about a month ago with my wife and our friends. But our active living centers don't have pickleball right now. So a lot of senior centers are coming to us saying, we want pickleball, but we don't quite have the space or the facility for it right now. So keeping up with those trends will be important over time. And then competition, other surrounding counties or things like entities like the YMCA, they're becoming a lot better at senior services. So there is a little bit of competition there. But somebody said there at the bottom, it helps keep me young at 65 years old. And that's what it's all about. We can skip through a little bit of this and just jump down to the bottom point, branding, kind of our product portfolio. I mentioned we're rebranding. We still do call it senior centers in department, but we're trying to rebrand to an active living center title. Senior center is kind of oversaturated. When you think of senior center, you think, 65 and up. You think, people that maybe can't quite do as many things, but we serve 50 and better. So people 50 to 65 aren't quite as likely to join a senior center. But if you call it an active living center, that kind of speaks to forward momentum. We want to be active living, so and welcoming to the 50 to 65s as well. So, and that way, if we bring them in that age demographic, they'll stay with us, for the duration of their older adulthood. So, this is a powerful quote. It was a lifesaver for me after my husband died. If somebody says that about our service, that's awesome. That's about all you could ask for. So, people find their place and socialize well at our facilities. Main thing on this page, there in the blue in the middle, that's kind of what I said our slogan is as far as our new business plan or marketing plan. Growing older doesn't mean slowing down. And again, with active living, you're moving, you're going places, you're doing things that your normal seniors wouldn't quite think they could do. But if they come and experience it with us, they'll be a whole lot more likely that they'll feel they're up for it. So we want it to be, forward facing. So growing older doesn't mean slowing down. That's kind of what we went with for our slogan. That's way too small to read. So essentially our competitive analysis, we're comparing to Mecklenburg County, Rowan County. I deleted Stanley County because it was on our longer version. What they do well, what they don't do well. Pretty much all you need to know is we think that Cabarrus County does it the best, but these are local entities that do it well. And then with that, I mentioned a kind of a indirect competitor is the YMCA. They've really upped their game as far as senior services, so they do a good job as well. Again, real small, but the main thing is that graph in the middle is a breakdown of ages throughout Cabarrus County. You can't see it, but between 50 to the end, 50 to 80 plus, that's 33% of Cabarrus County. 33% is 1/3. Yep, right there. The older half or the older edge there, 1/3 of our county demographic is of the age to participate at our active living facilities. If that's 1/3 now, it's going to keep going up. And Cabarrus County Active Living and Parks are committed to reaching those needs as best as we can. So who are our target markets? Obviously, for anybody, again, 50 and better, and also who live within 15 miles of our facilities. So 15 miles of Concord, Afton, Mount Pleasant, and 50 and up. Those are our target markets. But the left box pretty much says people who want to improve their social life, make new friends, strengthen old friends. The right box, target market number 2, same age, same region, but their goal in coming is to improve their overall health, their flexibility, their mobility. So pretty much those are the two groups we're after with this marketing plan. Our organizational goals, again, as a department, we want to improve the quality of life for all people through fitness, wellness, and educational programs. So some of the marketing goals in that blue box say we want to increase program participation, and then we want to minimize cost per exposure across all marketing channels. So the things we do to market, we want them to be successful, and we can kind of get rid of the things that aren't as successful. We can kind of put less stock, less effort into those. Another goal, we want to increase participation in our senior games. Another goal, we want to expand our current reach on social media. And also, we want to establish awareness and interest in the new facilities before their grand openings. So pretty much that bottom little paragraph, the value proposition, what gives us value as an entity, as a service, as a product. It's a phenomenal place for older adults to make friends and learn new skills to live a healthy and robust life. As we get older, some of the most important things are learning new skills, training your brain in a new way, keeping things fresh. Again, another super powerful quote, it saved my life. If we touched somebody in that way, that is awesome. That's a win. So I was surprised to see some of these super powerful quotes in this survey that we weren't really asking for, but people really said what we mean to them, and it was powerful to see. So I mentioned this, our marketing survey. To help build this plan, we did a 5-question survey. We ran it for 2.5 weeks at each of our active living centers, pretty much asking our clients, our patrons, how are you hearing about us? How are you staying in contact with us? So question 1, how did you hear about this class and the active living centers? The biggest bar in that graph is word of mouth. Far and away, word of mouth is how people are hearing about us. We're creating those raving fans that we want based off excellent products and services, and they're going to tell their friends and their peers, and that's bringing more and more people. But some other strong ways that we've reached people have been flyers and posters, phone calls, and emails. Question number 2, well, let me back up. Some of the super small bars in there that are not reaching as many people that we need to probably steer away from are newspaper ads, Google searches and websites, and other, I forget exactly what was another, maybe TV ads, maybe radio ads. But those things we can probably just throw out. They're not contributing too many new users. So question number 1 was, how did you hear about us for the first time? Question number 2 is, how do you stay in touch with us? How do you keep in the loop? And the main one there is emails and texts, as well as phone calls. So emails, texts, phone calls. I'll get into that a little bit later. We use a system called Everbridge. You may have heard of it. It does a mass communication, phone call, text, email, all at once to tell of upcoming programs or alerts. And that is going a long way to keeping our patrons in the loop on our programs. So we're going to keep that up. But some of those other ones we're probably not going to do so much on. I'm going to breeze through the marketing tactics. They all tailor back to our marketing goals. Tactic number 1 is, since we're so strong with refer a friend or word of mouth referrals, let's do a promo that says it's a refer a friend promo. You go out and tell 3 people about our programs and services, and they come show up, they step foot in our facility. That gives you 3 free class signups. So that, again, pushes people to keep spreading the word, and incentivizes them with some free classes. So another tactic is keep social media rolling. It's going to keep growing. Do 2 posts a week on social media minimum. Probably just 2. You don't want to oversaturate it. So keep that rolling as well. There's a lot of marketing tactics on here. I'll skip around, but again, tactic: keep up with Everbridge. We want that mass communication. We want to keep using that. It's keeping people in the loop. Keep that coming. How do we improve or increase yearly senior games participation. So the marketing goal was to improve senior games participation by 10%. I want to give Ian and Megan with the Senior Center, Active Living Center, their flowers. They hit their goal. They had 10% growth this year over last year, so they did great. How did they do it? They started marketing early, and it's a spring event. Start in the winter. Get it in people's heads. Every class, give them a reminder, but also use ambassadors. We've got a bunch of people that are passionate about the senior games. Have them go out to different classes, different groups, and spread the word, get more people involved. So very thankful for our ambassadors. They do a great job spreading the word. All right, how do we improve our social media following? The goal is to improve it by 15% every year. 15% every year. So one thing we're going to do is offer a free technology class at the Active Living Center. Still getting used to it. A free technology class that trains seniors and participants how to use social media for the first time. So maybe do one class a week for a month, and each week you compound on those skills learned from the prior week. At the end of that, you've gone through at least 4 weeks of a class learning how to use social media. That's not going to make you an expert, but it's going to get your feet wet. Out of that, you do your next tactic, which is a social media giveaway. We've probably all seen those. It says, like this post for a giveaway, share with 3 friends, follow the page. That really expands your reach on social media. So by doing those things, you enter yourself into a drawing. And at the end of the promo, we do a drawing based on those participants. And the winner, we said, would receive a T-shirt that says Tech Savvy Senior. So Tech Savvy Senior, just to show off to their friends that I am tech savvy, I can do it. And also give them maybe a free tour of a local facility like your Reed Gold Mine or something like that. Just incentivize them to get on social media, build the brand through the class, but then build your following through that promo. So just a couple things. And then for the new centers coming on board in the next few years, send out mailers to everybody in just a little postcard, maybe to a 3-mile radius. This is what the Active Living Center is. This is what we do. Come check us out. Grand opening is in 6 months, something like that. This is just pretty much a schedule of our promos throughout the year, what Colton and I came up with. Again, super small, but that's all it's saying there. This is our budget for the marketing plan. So with our top few marketing avenues being word of mouth, that's obviously free. Social media doesn't cost very much money. Brochures and flyers cost a little bit of money. Those are all super cheap avenues that we can market with. So we had our total marketing budget coming to a little over $1,500. It sounds like a steal. Again, it's those cheaper, I guess, not as expensive avenues that we want to get after that. Seem like they're working already, so keep it going. How we're going to evaluate this plan is obviously if our goal is to improve participation and awareness of our facility, then our eval is off of, did we do that? How many people extra did we get this year over last year? Things like that. So, every so often we'll check up, are we expanding our client base and things like that? That's the goal. So that's essentially it. There's a few things through here, more survey data through the appendix that you guys can check up on at your own time, and a sample brochure we may use to post in a park or an active living center to advertise upcoming events. A sample newsletter that you may see through Everbridge, just saying, hey, classes are upcoming soon this week. This is what they are. Here's a sample Instagram post. Sorry, it's also small, but that's pretty much it. We had a blast doing it. I wish Colton was here today, but do you guys have any questions for me? Sorry, I was a little long-winded.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First of all, that earlier picture of you and Colton, is that the way y'all normally dress?
That is our everyday attire now. That was my wedding day attire. It looks like Colton was in a wedding too that day, but.
Yeah, well, and on a serious note, and I think it's an excellent report. I think that the change in terminology to active living probably works. I have been eligible to participate in services for almost 20 years and have resisted doing so. But now that you're calling it active living, I might sign up. Also, the course that you're talking about offering on social media, I could certainly use that as well. So you've perked my interest a second time, and a number of other things. But I think it's a great report. Congratulations. You should receive an A.
Thank you. We did.
Oh, well, good.
Thank you.
You should have included that.
This course ended, I think, late February, so we've done it for a while, but we did. We were thankful for it, so.
Yeah, excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Shue probably will not acknowledge it, but he too is eligible for services as well. I can't speak for the other three commissioners.
Okay. Come on out and see us.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
We appreciate you bringing that to us.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next up is discussion of courthouse plaza identification. And Kyle Billifer will talk with us about that item.
At the request of County Manager Downs, we decided to bring this up in front of the board. Obviously, the previous road that was abandoned and dedicated to the county for the property was Means Avenue. There's never been any indication on the prints that we were calling it Means Plaza. There was no indication of that. There were some ideas thrown around Union Plaza. The city of Concord hasn't called it anything except the public plaza. It could be called the courthouse plaza. I don't think any of us have a dog in the fight, but at some point, when it comes to reserving it and also probably advertising certain events, or for my purposes, explaining to the public that it can be used as a cut through for different parking lots to get to different areas in downtown, it will become somewhat helpful down the line, and for the city's wayfinding signage as they start to come back with that after the streetscaping, it would be convenient to be able to call it something, whether it is the Courthouse Plaza, Union Plaza, Means Plaza, or what the request of the board might be.
Commissioners, comments on that item?
My vote would be for the courthouse plaza. I think that makes the most sense, but,
I would agree with Chris. I mean, courthouse plaza.
Echo that, and my second would be Union.
I think the courthouse plaza suits it very well, and if that didn't work, it could be Means Plaza, but I think courthouse plaza would be better.
I think Courthouse Plaza is okay. I like Union Plaza. I think that the connotation that comes along with that as a public gathering space, which hopefully that will be for various events. I like the thought of Union, and it's not specific to any municipality. It's for the entire county. It ties in with Union Street. So, but it sounds like we've got a 4-1 vote here.
I understand what you're saying as well. I mean, and I have no problem with the Union Plaza, but I think with the historic courthouse being right there and the new courthouse, I feel like that would be, when you say Union Plaza, people may think, well, where is that along Union Street? Say Courthouse Plaza, everybody knows where the historic courthouse and obviously aware of the new courthouse being built. I feel like that is a more distinguishable location when you mention that. But
I do not disagree with that. Does that give you the direction you wanted?
I believe I heard a resounding move forward with the courthouse plaza, so that is what I will move forward with my
That's what I heard
instruction.
as well. Yeah,
Thank you very much for your
great.
time.
Thank you. Okay, next is item 3.3, Midland Fire Department, proposed fire service districts and implementation of a service board. We're happy to have Chief Larry Coley to talk about that item. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I am Chief Coley with Midland Fire Department, but today I'll be representing the 10 volunteer fire departments in the county. Here to discuss the financial part of the fire study that was put out and potentially what may come down the pipe. If you look up on the screen, I provided this to each of the county commissioners. I have spoke with some of them already. Mr. Shue, I didn't, but I gave Mr. Morris the book to give you so you can see the numbers before. This would affect, this is the 10 fire departments that are Concord, Kannapolis, and Harrisburg are municipalities along with Mount Pleasant. Mount Pleasant happens to be a combination department that serves the rural district. Midland Fire Department does not fall under the town of Midland. We contract back to them, so we are independent. But you do have 10 fire departments that this can affect. The fire service board that they're talking about putting in place, we met as a group. They asked me to represent them, and as the 10 fire chiefs came together, what we're asking is for one of the options was to leave it as is and let natural growth occur. So this is where it comes in. During the fire study, this was an unknown factor when it was being done. The numbers that were given out through Mr. Thompson, the fire marshal who happens to be back in the room, he said that it could be anywhere from a 30% to a 40% increase, maybe a little bit more. So I bumped it back down to 30 so these numbers wouldn't be inflated. But this will have an effect on, and I picked out one particular fire department, Georgeville Fire Department, and I guess, yeah. So I picked out Georgeville Fire Department. They will probably benefit more than anyone else through, if we leave it as it goes with the 30% increase through the property tax evaluation. And we've requested that possibly 1 or 1.5 cent on the 100 to be added to that, which I'll go through in just a few more minutes of what that could be used for. So at the current time, Georgia's fire budget, and I got these numbers from Mr. Thompson, who's been very gracious to give me the numbers. These are the tax sheets that's been provided in the booklet. In 2023-24, we used 30% projection on these numbers to get close to the 24-25. You know, of course, it's not going to be a hard number because we don't know exactly what they may put out. So the budget for 23 with 98% collection rate for Georgeville Fire Department and 1.5% collection rate from the county for collecting is $4,438.65. The county leaves us a total of $285,553.15. That's what they'll be operating on this upcoming year. It was advised there was possibility of 40%. We went through that, but I'm going to keep it at 30% because I don't want any, I'd rather keep the numbers low, not get our expectations too high. A 30% increase on 285,000 was going to yield them an $85,000 increase in their budget in 1 year. All right, so you have to understand that they're operating off, most of the fire departments are operating anywhere from about 350. Some of us in the combinations moving to a paid fire department are working well above that, but it's all in relation to what you run. We ran close to 1,200 calls last year. We're probably going to bump about 1,350. Georgeville was running just about 300 calls a year. So, we're running 2 stations. Mount Pleasant is one of the busiest in the county. Odell's extremely busy. So the cost of diesel fuel and the replacement of trucks is also bumped up. That all relates back to how much calls you run. So it is a lower figure, but take that in perspective of what they actually have to do per year versus what other departments do. All right, this will give them a new total of $371,000 over 1 year if we leave that 30% in place. All right, 1 cent on the 100 in rural district for the county for 2023, 505,425. If you do that, multiply it by 30%, it gives basically through the 10 fire departments, a $65,000 check that could be cut to them from the 10, divided by the 10 fire departments to support their budget. All right, so if we put that, Georgia will have a new budget of $436,924. That's a huge increase for them. I spoke with Chief Blackwater and extensively about this, and he was okay with me using them. This means a lot to them. Now, as far as debt ratios, everybody's at a different point in time. I'll give you an example why we need this to happen also. And if you put it at 40% on that, you're looking at $524,000 jump. We ordered a fire truck at Midland 2 years ago. It's $606,000. That was a spec'd out custom truck. I called the factory back 3 months later and requested a second truck be added to it because one of the neighborhoods is being built up in the Pioneer Mill section. He said, you can get that truck, but it's gonna cost you $720,000. So in 3 months, that truck from 606 to $724,000, and he told me it will be an extra year before delivery time. I made contact with the corporation again 2 months ago because our truck's due. It got moved back 3 times. He told me mine will be on schedule this time to be delivered in November, which is a year late. But if I wanted that truck again, it'd be $830,000, and it would be a 4-year delivery time. So what's happening is, because of the economy and supply and demand, I can't do, and the other 10 fire chiefs can't put a 5-year plan together and it be rock solid unless we know what revenue's coming in. Now, the natural course of a fire truck, and Mr. Workman knows this from his past, we retire fire trucks somewhere at about the 10-year mark in an urban area. It all depends on how many calls you run. Most of these guys are holding on to 15 years. So if I order a truck and it's taking 4 years to get here and it takes me a year to spec it out, that's 5 years into that system already. We have to know what those increases will be as they come in. The other thing was NFPA recommends that you have 9 firefighters on scene to have an effective firefighting force for a residential structure fire. Right now with the driver situation, some of us have drivers, some of us don't, 24 hours a day. This will assist those departments with making upgrades to their stations to be able to put those drivers in there 24 hours a day. This morning, and I didn't have it on the slide, so I'm not gonna do it today, but I'm gonna give you all the paperwork to take home to look. It was running through my mind how we could do that. With 1 cent on the 100 plus the $30,000 a year that's already given to the fire departments for drivers, they can actually pay for somebody to be in their station for 24 hours a day. Now, the only thing that makes a difference, he was talking about the seniors too. The only thing that the fire departments and law enforcement, EMS, they are the frontline people. There is nothing between them and what happens. We have to control that incident. The only way to do that is get the equipment there and the people there. If you do that and put a driver in every station and you adjust the run cars, which they can control, we can put 4 fire departments on there and the squad truck will have 9 people. But you'll have more than that most likely. But that's your 9 people you need. It revenue that's there existing, it doesn't have to be added to. And I'll talk with Mr. Burnett and Mr. Thompson, they're back here, but I didn't come up with this other venue till this morning. I want to talk with them first, and I'll drop that information off to you. The money's there. If you create another, and this is where the 10 fire chiefs got in, we talked about. Now, we have 10 boards in existence now. Each fire department has their own board. You're gonna put an oversight board over the 10 fire departments, but you already got 10 boards in place. Now, if my board agrees to let me purchase or build Station 3, that's a good example. That may be coming down the pipe for us. And they tell me I can, and I'm at revenue neutral, and I can't grow, and then I turn around and I need that money that was already there, I have to go back and ask for that money. If that board tells me no, but my board told me yes, now we've got a conflict. I see that happening, and after 2 or 3 years of coming back needing that money to grow, and we're moving to a paid fire department. I have 4 volunteers left. I have 56 people on my roster. That's just to keep people on the truck working part-time. I have 6 full-time drivers. But what will happen is, at some point in time, we have to have that money to grow out. Unfortunately, there are no volunteers left. The people that are leaving this service are not being replaced by volunteers. So you're gonna have to generate revenue to replace people and put them in there. The truck getting out the station under a minute, getting on scene within 4 to 6 minutes in a rural area, I get it. It's gonna take a little longer, probably about 6 to 8. But the 4 fire departments showing up, the squad truck being centrally located with the pickup can get there within 8 minutes. You've got an effective force to do what needs to be done. CPR call, serious medical calls, you got between 6 and 8 minutes to do what you need to do on CPR to get that patient. Now, there's equipment we've bought $36,000 worth of auto pulses to put on our trucks to assist with that. But the fact of the matter is, if it doesn't get there and the people don't get there, it's not gonna do any good. That's the number one issue. It's not equipment issues anymore, it's personnel. And unfortunately, it's gonna move into that. This would be a good step to get the drivers in the stations to also the squad truck and being coinciding with that to get us where we need to be down the road. Now, I've retired from Charlotte 2 years ago, took this job. I'm gonna be here 4 or 5 more years, and I'm gonna do my thing, I hope, because this is 38 years for me. I've been in this since I was 15 years old, and I've seen that change. But if we gotta start getting ready for it now. Now, and Mr. Thompson did it exactly what he should do. The numbers are astronomical for the county, county fire department. It's $18 million, and I believe it'd be more than that. There's some underlying things that he can't think of everything. So you can do it for the existing money, or you can have to come up with $20 million, basically. My recommendation is to let it grow naturally, incorporate 1 cent or 1 cent on the 100, and put that in the contracts to put drivers in the stations. Now, that's how you control me. We may be an independent 501c3, and I got a contract with Town of Midland, I got a contract with Rural District, I got a contract with West Stanley Fire Department, Fairview, Mint Hill, I've got contracts with everybody. But in that contract's how you control people. If we need to I've talked to Mr. Burnett in private, he came to see me last week. He will sit down with me, he's more than welcome to, and we've agreed to many things. I'm gonna tell you, Mr. Burnett was a great hire for the county, in my opinion. He's the future of the county, Mr. Thompson's the future of this county. I'm gonna age out and do my thing, but they are the one-point contacts, you need to do it, but the way you control me is through the contract. If I sign that contract and I don't meet the needs, he can take that contract and morph it into, but he could put benchmarks in there. Mr. Burnett's agreed to sit down with each one of the fire chiefs and set the benchmarks and what needs to be done. That's the way you control it. And that's what the 10 fire chiefs are asking to happen. Leave it the way it is, where we can be sovereign and run our department. They control us through the contracts and evaluations. And I think once a year, he should sit down with each fire chief, evaluate the station and the progression that's going on, and point them in the right direction. Now, we have a chiefs meeting that we can go to and do this, but he will do his job if you let him do his job, and I trust him to do it. But I think the best thing the fire chiefs are requesting is to leave it as is. So I'll provide that documentation for each one of you via email that I came up with today, because I want to go through it one more time, make sure it's exactly right before I send it, but the money's there. So, you have any questions?
I guess one question that I would have is, well, first of all, I would like to see kind of a comparison chart. This is what it would be if we let each department increase their tax rate by 1 cent. Now, we just heard from 5 or 6 last week, and I think there's 1 or 2 that maybe is already maxed out.
No.
Or is that the municipal?
No, so, right, that's correct, Mr.
They're
Downs.
getting
Right.
close, they're
15
not-
cent on the 100 is high as you can go in the state of North Carolina legally.
Right,
The highest right now is 12.82, which is Northeast Fire Department.
okay,
So most of them are hovering around 10%, 10 cent on the 100,
Yeah.
which gives you a 5 cent buffer.
okay. Okay, so I think what I'd like to see is if we let each one of them do 1%, what they would receive, and if we did 1% in the fire district and divided it by 10, what the difference would be.
Yeah, is that-
Because
that-
there would be,
Yes, sir, that paperwork that I'm going to provide you has it
Yeah.
wrote down.
and then I guess the thing I would have to justify in my mind is, if we're going to do that, do we need a fire district at all? I mean, what advantage does that offer? Or is that something that would only be needed if we had a majority of districts that were at the limit, and they still, and I mean, I think everything you say is absolutely, I mean, that's what's correct. We've been talking about that for years, the changing environment of volunteers and how our society has changed, and, you know, firemen, volunteer firemen now may be a volunteer fireman on the eastern side of the county and work on the other side of Charlotte somewhere. They just can't stop what they're doing and come in like they could in days gone by. But appreciate the information and the time that you've put into analyzing this, and you and I had a very lengthy conversation, and that was very helpful to me. And I don't think we've made any decision on anything at this point. It's just been discussion and maybe maybe a little bit more serious than brainstorming, but this is a conversation that we've been having for 10 years or more, I think. Saying, the environment continues to change, and we need to be prepared to address it when we have to. And we may be able to come up with something today that may buy us 5 more years, and then we might have to have a different plan. Or at least that's the way it seems to me, as the environment continues to change, and your situation as far as trying to get qualified personnel continues to change. So this is very helpful discussion.
I'll give you the natural progression of the death of a volunteer fire department. It's the easiest way I know to say it. So what's gonna happen, the reason they're wanting tax increases is not for equipment. That's a small part of it, very, very small. I'd say less than 2%, because they operate off a budget, and they know, some of them save money for years to put down on a truck. The reason they want the money to be increased, or the tax increase, is to hire personnel, because that's what's happening. Everybody in this county has somebody working part-time. Well, the resources they pull from is Concord, Charlotte, Harrisburg, Monroe, Salisbury, the bigger towns that when their firefighters are off duty, that's their skill or their trade. They come back to do that part-time. Well, they're only gonna do it for X number of dollars, and the firemen will move from one station to another for $1 an hour, I promise you, because that's what they do. They work 24 hours there, they might work 12 or 14 or 10 and a 10, but you multiply that by that $1 an hour, that's how they see it.
Right.
So right now, there is a kind of a competition that really is not equal for them to hire these people. And you may have a Charlotte fire captain working at one station and a volunteer who's never worked at a paid fire department in another. And when they show up at a scene, it's a completely different thing. And the competition now is to gather those people up, and it costs money. And that's, in all honesty, that's what you're going to. So at 12.82, which the Northeast is, they still have a buffer zone between that 15 cent on the 100. That's what we're requesting. The 1 or 1.5 is to be put in specifically before labor. It can be put in the contract for that for staffing issues. There are some departments that desperately need that. Now, if you give them the tax increase they're asking for with no benchmarks or nothing in their contract, and they don't spend it on that, they should come back later and ask for that money back for labor. And that's where you have one opportunity to put it to that. So that's what we're asking as a whole, to use it for that. That's where the EM director and the fire marshal sits down and then negotiate how that's gonna work out, put it on paper, and it has to be signed, and those are the rules and guidelines they have to operate with them.
Right.
So,
Well, and I've said it a number of times before, and I think it's worth repeating, is we very much appreciate and value what the volunteer fire departments, the service they provide to the people of Cabarrus County. I think you just provided the perfect example of why we would want to preserve that relationship as long as possible. And you mentioned the alternative, or one alternative would be to establish a county-wide fire department, which would be astronomically expensive for us to accomplish. We don't want that for our taxpayers to have to fund, and so that sort of props up what I said. You guys provide an extremely valuable service to all the people of Cabarrus County, and we appreciate that. And we appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to us about it and help us better understand the challenges and the options that are available to us. I speak for myself. I welcome anybody else to join in comments you might have as well.
I'd just like to thank you. I know that we've had countless conversations with transparency up front. Getting all 10 fire chiefs to agree to something is no small feat. So getting that to happen in the first place. I know I've talked with Commissioner Morris at length. We've never had any, and I can't imagine anybody else up here has any interest in being a fire chief or controlling a fire department. It's just we have to look at things at a higher level. What works for Midland might not work for Odell or Northeast. And I'd just like to say thank you, because I think you might have found a plan that works equally for everybody, especially with pretty much the money that we already have. So thank you for always being willing to talk and meet and putting forth the effort for that.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I really do. I know it's a lot of stuff going on. I appreciate this time to get here and present the plan.
I'd like to thank you also, and I just have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Squad 410, if it was your recommendation to centrally locate them, where would that be?
It would have, the best place in the county, actually, to me, and I know, I'm not gonna step on Mr. Thompson or Mr. Burnett's, to me, would be somewhere around the arena area, because the veins to get where you need to be are there. There's property that county owns there, they could put a station there if they need to, or work out something with one of the existing stations being built. But right now with the economy, I don't see anybody. We were scheduled to build Station 3 this coming year, and the developer pulled out. So if the rooftops aren't there, they're not gonna build a fire station, because that has to be there to fund that station, plus the truck, plus the people. So, maybe some county property centrally located. The key to the squad truck is being quick response with the manpower. So the veins that they have, they can get south, they can get east, and they can get up on the north side pretty quick from there. And like, you know, like we talked about squad truck, to me, they're a valuable resource. I spoke with Mr. Burnett extensively about how I felt about some things, and there was some questions asked during some meetings, but I think they need to stay in service if at all possible, and they can be useful. Us as fire chiefs have to accept that, and we need to use that, because it's not about us, it's about the public safety. They have to come first, and if that's not my first thought process when I'm making a decision, then we need to step back and look at ourselves. That's just my opinion on it.
Again, I appreciate all you've done, and we've had multiple conversations, so again, I appreciate you bringing this to the table and giving us an option.
Absolutely. My phone's open 24 hours a day. If you need to call and ask a question, I will answer it, I promise.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Well, first, thank you, like everyone else said, I like this plan. I think it's the best one we've seen, and I feel like this is the route we should take. A comment that Chairman Morris made sparked a question in my mind. If we did just a 1 cent increase for each district instead of the 1 cent overlay, could we dictate that goes to staffing if it's part of just 1 cent for each district and not the overlay?
You can.
But it would be,
The value, as Chief was explaining, if you put it all together and then split it between the departments, the number is gonna be larger if you do it that way.
Right, okay.
Versus, you're gonna still have those inefficiencies or those discrepancies between the small stations or the small districts and the larger
Okay.
districts, so.
All right.
But
Well-
you can dedicate where you want your.
okay. Well, I'm for the,
Just simply through the contracts, as Chief called it.
yeah.
That's correct.
I'm for that 1 cent going for the staffing, to help with the staffing overlay. Now, I am against the oversight committee. As you had said, we have 10 boards already. I don't think we need to create another governing board to decide, or for those boards to have to come to and request information, or to request funds, or how they can spend it. So, in my opinion, I would go with this plan, and then not have the oversight board, and we can do the 1 cent or 1.5 cent overlay, and divide that equally and be used just for staffing grant.
So just for clarification, Chief,
Yes,
we had
sir.
our conversation.
Yes.
yesterday. So the numbers that you're calculating with, you're assuming that the county keeps the tax rate at the same in order to realize those 30 to 40%.
Yes, sir, that's correct. Yeah, and I figured it 30 instead of 40. I've heard all kind of numbers,
Sure.
but 30's bottom line, so
And
I
just
figured it out.
a note on that, and I know David Thrift's in the room, so he might want to expand on this. So we like to use big numbers for reval, whether it's 30% or 40%. The most recent number I've seen is something lower than that, but keep in mind that is an average for the entire county. So it is not uniform across districts. So some fire districts could see an increase of 50%, some could see barely any growth. And so it's important to keep that in mind when we talk about adding reval for next year.
So we'll have a more accurate idea with these numbers come, when would you say that we would have a more
Not
accurate?
until early 2024.
Okay.
Right, David? Yeah.
Okay. Which I think still gives us some time.
Yeah.
To figure out. So it'd be interesting to see those numbers whenever that happens, and we'll have more of a clear understanding. But as of now, I feel like this is the route we should take.
Yeah, and this, all of these figures assume that you would not be adopting a revenue-neutral tax rate in the fire districts after the reval. So effectively, that would be an increase in each one of them. So, and that may be necessary. I'm not saying that it's not, but, I mean, I think it's important to acknowledge that if we followed that plan, we would be approving tax increases in every fire district.
The good thing too, also, if you add in the 1 or 1.5 or whatever you decide to do, that's countywide. So if we build 2,200 homes in Mount Pleasant, that 1% grows, that's divided by the 10, so that's the equality across the board. That's the one thing they're looking for. If the growth spurt's here, it's shared over here. Plus they, whatever their budget is, they're gonna operate off their budget, but that will be for staffing, and that will get them where they need to be. Because Mount Pleasant, I'll use them for example, not just Midland, they take their equipment and their people, and they really assist the smaller people constantly. What costs them money? It costs them diesel fuel, it costs them brakes and truck replacements, it costs them manpower and their hours, somebody has to backfill it, but they don't mind doing it. But it does, there is a dollar figure tied to all that. So the hub fire departments being the bigger departments like Odell, which is kind of out by itself, but that says Concord and Huntersville. But Mount Pleasant, Midland, we split the middle of the county, and they take the north and the east, we take the south and the east. And we don't mind, and that's what it's all about. So the hub fire departments do carry a lot of that too, but it would help them to have their driver there. I don't think we had, I think Mr. Thomas told me we had a couple double dispatches this year, but I don't think we had any non-responses, but at some point in time, it may come down to that. Even though this sounds really bad, but when you hire part-timers, there's some days they may not show up for work. And you get on the phone and try to find someone. During the holidays, it's really hard. We went a couple of years, I had to go in to keep the station from shutting down, which I won't allow to do if I have to do it myself and my deputy, but we hire full-timers just for that reason. That's where it's gonna progress to. They'll hire full-timers eventually just to have them there.
Now, at our retreat, we were given 3 options in our retreat in February. And I believe we had kind of gave guidance to go off of the fire commission, because at the time seemed like it was the best option. But at what point do we need to give guidance to Jacob and them, so if we choose to do something else, they're not wasting time trying to implement something that
I would think that the guidance that we offer to them, and of course, they're here and they're listening to this conversation as well, and I think that probably at some point, we would want to give them the option to come back and give us an evaluation of the things that they've heard, but no action would be taken until it was budgeted and voted on by this board. And that could take a couple of different routes. If we wait until we get back to, I mean, I think Mr. Harris makes a very good point. You're gonna have some districts in the western side of the county where building is, I mean, property values are increasing more rapidly, home prices, they're building more expensive homes, and that's more desirable because of the the population growth that has occurred on that side of the county. On the eastern side of the county, say northeast as an example, they're not experiencing that type of growth in that area, and because they do not have water and sewer services out there, et cetera. I think as Chief Coley mentioned, Midlands had a little backing up on some of the development, probably because of the availability of utilities and that sort of thing. So it's not going to be an even growth in the valuation countywide. So after we have those figures back from the revaluation, I think that we could probably make a more educated decision about it when we could look at the big picture and see just exactly how different areas are impacted. And of course, I'm sure that that Jason and Jacob would want to have some input as to what works schedule-wise on that as well.
I think the other thing too that's got to be cognizant of, and Rich and Evan will have to help us with that too, as we bring in two different funding streams, there's going to be some requirements by statute that we can only spend, we can't spend across the line, so we have to make sure that we're doing it correctly. But it's a good idea.
Yeah, and you used the term double dispatch a minute ago, and I'm assuming that means you had two simultaneous calls
No.
in two different
No, sir, that would
directions.
be that they had initial call, and there was no response. I believe it was 2 minutes, Jacob. In 2 minutes, they hit that dispatch again, but they attach another fire department to that to cover that if there is a non-response.
Okay,
Which is smart tactically on the part of the county to do that.
right.
So most 2 minutes, you're gonna have a second fire department reacting to that also, but it's at a further distance. So it's crucial. Manpower is the key to everything. That's where it's coming, and it's just how you get to it. Like I said, we got 56 people on the roster, and 4 of them are volunteers. That's what I'm down to.
And you mentioned earlier the contracts, the various contracts you had. I think you said Mint Hill.
Mint Hill, Locust, Stanfield, the town of Midland, and, of course, the volunteers that touch me, a Flow Store, that,
Right.
mutual aid agreements. But I have contracts with all of those.
And so how do you handle a situation, maybe this hasn't occurred, if you have and I'm learning a little bit, mutual aid, I think, would
That's
be the
correct.
term you would use, call to Locust.
Right.
And then you had a mutual aid call to Flow Store. Where does that leave Midland?
At the same time,
Yeah,
okay, so I'll give you an example. I can't give you the date, but we pulled out of the station to go to a medical call. Within 3 minutes, we had 3 calls at the same time.
right,
So fortunately for us, because we divert so much money to labor, we put $1.3 million, which 1.4 this coming year, over to labor. I have a chief on duty who directs traffic where it needs to go. I have an engine in service and an aerial platform in service from Station 1. The chief answered the medical call. He diverted engine 3 to the other medical call and sent the tower to the fire alarm. So he directs traffic. Now, that's situation for us. Now, for somebody else, it may be different. If Mount Pleasant gets 2 or 3 calls at one time, they have to request another department and prioritize which one to go to. So if it's a house fire or a lift assist, the company that's responding inside Mount Pleasant is going to the house fire, obviously.
right.
And we'll send another company or 4 squad, 410, or somebody to assist with the lift assist. So somebody has to prioritize what's going on. So the more people you have to pull from, the better. But one of the chiefs from that district or that area would divert who they need to handle that problem.
Yeah. And
It
when
has to
you-
be that way.
When you say lift assist, exactly what does that mean?
Someone's failed, it's elderly, and we usually, or somebody's had surgery, we help them back into bed. We do that, I don't know the number, we do that several times a week, just to help somebody who can't help themselves.
Right.
But if they're at that scene and get another call, we're fortunate enough to ride 3 to a truck. We'll drop one off, leave them there, and take the truck and go to the other call.
Right,
I'll have the chief come pick them up later if we have to, whatever has to happen. We always change and morph in to do what we need to do by prioritization. That's just the way it is, and if somebody has to wait a little longer for get out of the floor, we'll do that, but we can divert a community paramedic to that, or whatever we have to do, we prioritize it all. Now, coming from the city, and I'll use this for example, I was a captain of Charlotte Fire Department before I retired. First alarm box assignment, I get on a working fire, I get 23 people. That's in the city of Charlotte. Well, it's hard to compare the city of Charlotte to here, But what I do is I build my run cards in my district. Mount Pleasant builds theirs, Reimer builds theirs, Northeast builds theirs. But when I build my run cards, I build them heavy. And what I mean is, if it's a house fire, I'll add one extra person from another district coming in immediately. If I see smoke on the way, I'll bump it up to a working fire. Then I'm getting 2 or 3 more fire departments on that. So I already, if I have them coming in having their call, I can divert one of them to it. So I build heavy on my run cards when I do that for a reason. But like I said, it's all tactical with me. I've been doing this 38 years. I know how it works, and I know that stuff like that happens. If we go to West Antelope in a working fire, my rule is once they call it a working fire, Engine 3 responds to that call to back our people up. When I do that, I backfill that station with Flow Store or our Fairview or Mint Hill, so the area is not left unprotected. So that's why I have that chief in place if I'm at home or whatever, but that's how we operate. We never leave that unprotected if at all possible.
And let me just say publicly that those lift assist calls are invaluable.
Oh, they're very important to, especially the people that are there.
Yeah,
We don't deny them that. That's part of
Those
what they pay
are-
taxes for, and that's what we operate in.
absolutely. And those are tremendously valuable to those people that need those services. That's, in most cases, their only option.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, listen, I've done plumbing. I didn't do any electrical work, but I separate them, take them up. But we've done it all. He knows what I'm talking about. It happens. We're just closer and convenient. We stabilize it and tell them what to do. That's what I told the guys on my truck when I told them we didn't cause the incident. We're there to stop progression or stop it, period, if we can. If you can't, it's not a failure. You didn't start it. You're just there to stop it.
Right.
I said, keep your mind on your job and do what you're there to do. And that's my rule at Midland. When the bell hits, I expect them to do 110%. If they don't, I'll go talk to them. But I've got a really good group of guys. All of the people that I know, and I hear them going to call, I haven't heard any complaints. So the people that are there doing the job, they're there because they want to do the job. But we are moving back into a paid force. Even the pay guys understand that, what the rules and guidelines are, what we expect out of them. We make that very clear.
Any other questions or comments?
I just wanted to say a couple of things. I don't want to be redundant on what's already been said, but I think it's a good thing, Larry, that we've got as many volunteers as we have still in this day and time. We've talked about it, as Chairman Morris said, for the last 8 or 10 years, knowing how it's evolved. But one thing that I found, because I live in the same area that I grew up in, and the Allen Fire Department's just right there at me. And one thing that I've noticed over the years, as a commissioner going around visiting the different fire departments, is that it's like a real brotherhood, a bunch of good guys, and maybe a few gals too, I don't know, but mostly guys, that they're into that. They're into public service, trying to help their neighbor, trying to do what's right. The same thing that we try to do as public servants, as we try to do the right thing. And looking at what you have proposed here, I think is a good thing. I think that it'll make it a lot better. As Commissioner Neesmer said, I'm not really in favor of having another oversight committee over you guys. As long as we can keep it like we've got it, I think we need to. And I think, Larry, you mentioned that if we had a county-wide fire department, it would be somewhere excess of $20 million.
Yeah, the fire marshal that ran the numbers, that's the numbers he came with, $18 million, I believe, some change, but yeah, I believe it'd be around close to 20.
Well, if you put that in just regular layman's terms for the everyday citizen that might be watching this, and from those of you that's here, that wouldn't be but like a 7-cent increase on the tax rate.
Pretty much.
Because it's 3.1 million per penny. And so when you try to generate $20 million, you're looking at 7 cents on the tax rate just for fire protection. So to me, it makes so much more sense, financially equitable and everything, to let it grow as it grows the way it is now. And I appreciate all the time and effort that you've put into this, and appreciate the fire departments for all the hard work that they do, because they're saving the taxpayers lots of money, as you can easily see from that example that I just told you. It would cost us $20 million to do it on their own. and with the help of the volunteer fire departments, that's an expense that we don't have. And so I thank you for all your effort, and a lot of effort that went into this. I thank you for it.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay, we move now to discussion items for action. First up is 4.1 from the Cabarrus County Tourism Authority, fiscal year 2024 budget approval. Welcome Donna Carpenter and John Mills.
Thank
I
you.
was going to suggest you talk to Jacob before he leaves. He used the word tourism in his class title.
Well, funny you say that. I looked at John and said, do you think you'd want to come work for us? But Londa, I feel her eyes in the back of my back there. We wouldn't do that. Well, thank you for the opportunity this afternoon to appear before you. We're always excited to come in and talk with you, and I always like to say, we are not here to ask you for money. We are here to tell you how much money we are going to generate for you all, as well as this is a process that we are legislated. Our board of directors has already approved our budget, and we are required to come here so that you all can make sure we are not breaking any laws, so, by spending it. So, thank you for having us. First thing I want to do, though, is a little whoop whoop promo, hot off the press, our brand new destination guides. We've put one at each of your place, and we hope you look through it and find some things. I guarantee you haven't done every single thing in this book, or eaten at every restaurant, or gone to every attraction. So I would challenge you to do so if you haven't. And these are available free to anyone who would like them. They can come by the CVB office and pick them up, or we will deliver them to you. All you have to do is give us a call. So that's my promo. It is the year of the trail. And so that is why you see Buffalo Creek Nature Preserve on the front. We've had a lot of people, local people, who go, where is that? So now you know, go out there and visit it. Now, on to the budget process. John is going to, you jumped me too far there. There we go. I'm going to talk just a minute about occupancy tax. And occupancy tax, in case no one knows, or just as a good reminder, occupancy tax is collected by the hotels, and that money comes back to the county. It is a tax levied by you all. And then you all turn around and contract with us to do sales and marketing with that money. These are visitor dollars. The majority of this money is generated by the visitor. We do have, I'm not going to say we don't have any local people who are staying in a hotel that pay this tax. But if they're staying at an extended period of time, what is it, 90 days? After 90 days, that tax is refunded back to them, so they don't. So if we do have people who are residing or staying long-term in a hotel property that are local, they aren't paying that tax. But the majority of this is generated by the visitor, so we invite people to come to Cabarrus County, spend their money, and then go back home where they live. So as to date, you know, John and I, we were sitting there talking, we have done a lot of destination development, which a lot of CVBs do not do. We are fortunate enough to be able to do that. But just through projects like wayfinding, the flyover, as you'll see in the slide, the turf field projects, which by the way, has generated over $2 million in economic impact to our community already. We're embarking on the Mondo Track project, as well as a partnership with the city of Kannapolis. We have invested over $7 million of visitor tax dollars back into our community for various things in destination development. So I am super proud of that, and I don't know that we've ever been able to say that, and I'm proud to be able to sit up here and say that. I am going to move to the next slide, and I'm going to turn it over to John to talk about all the numbers.
All right, so we'll just talk a little bit about the revenue and what does that 6% occupancy tax look like. And you've got about 7-8 years there, so you can see what it looked like as we'll say, pre-COVID. And you can see we were running about $5.7 million, and we were kind of plateauing a little bit. And then, of course, FY '20 and '21, we all experienced what we saw through COVID, and it hit our industry harder than any other industry that's out there. What nobody could have predicted was how quick it rebounded. Nobody predicted the demand that was out there and how quick it would come back, whether it was leisure, business, or group travel. So you see that, right? As we got into FY '22, went over $6 million. We're probably on pace for 6.7, 6.8 this year. But we have a budget this year of almost $6.5 million. And again, that's representative of all the travel and our lodging that we shall see this year. So just to give you an idea, in 2022 over 21, 12.1% increase just in visitor demand, and hotel rates were up 15.4%. As we kind of get a little bit into the allocations, the left's kind of where we are is how we allocate with folks in administration and sales and marketing, kind of where we are on the right-hand side. Before we spend $1, we actually, we have a great tool that we utilize within the research category, because research is so important what we do. And when anyone that's spending any money and invest, whether you're a private company and you're investing money in marketing, you need to understand a little bit more about your customer. For us, it's our visitor. Where are they coming from? Where do they go when they come to the county? How much money do they spend? How much money they spend on lodging or food or attractions? So I can tell you our largest percentage of visitors that we track come from Greensboro. I can tell you Raleigh actually spends more than Greensboro. So we can kind of put these together and benchmark, and that allows our marketing team and our sales team to really try to attract those audiences, because we know they're going to have the best return on our investment. So that's something that we use. At the bottom, you can see the county. The two biggest pieces when we start with our budget is 5% admin fee. The county retains that. So just that 5% for next year, or almost $323,000 that comes back to the county, that hits your general fund. Then the other 5% is sports development. That $323 right now, it's going back to pay the turf field project. Again, we had cash in hand that paid for part of that project. Part of it, the county, thank you very much, borrowed that money, and so that 5% is going to pay that off over the last several years, and hopefully things continue to pick up and we pay that off sooner, and we move on to other things. The Mondo track was actually paid for by us, so the county didn't have to pay for that. We had cash that we had on hand to be able to do that. A lot of the efforts into marketing, specifically on the sales side, will go to push that Mondo track. There's a lot of interest in that Mondo track already. The calls are coming. So our sales team will be advertising, going to trade shows, and doing everything they can to obviously push that Mondo track, as well as additional turf fields. On the leisure side, we're adding, we'll have a budget near $1.8 million just in the leisure market, which is our largest segment, to be able to attract those visitors that come here on vacation, visit family and friends, which is the number one reason people like to travel. So we'll be doing a lot of that. And then visitor services, while we have our office at our visitor center for people to come and see us. We also have our fan van. If you're out at NHRA this weekend, we use our fan van to extend that to meet people and push our brand and what it is that we do. But we're going to try to go even further. We might be doing some pop-ups like inside the convention center one morning, where there's a big crowd of people having breakfast before they go out for the day on their business meetings. Pass us. Let us tell you, hey, if you have a day or so, let's tell you about all the things you can do and you can see. And so we're going to try to be doing some additional pop-up little visitor center segments if we can throughout the year in different parts. So instead of waiting for the visitor to come to us in our center, we're going to try to make sure we're doing everything we can to get to them and get in front of them and let them know about all of the wonderful things we have. So that is really it. So again, our budget is $6,475,000, and that is our budget for FY 2024.
Does anybody have any questions for us?
Curious why you projected a lower occupancy tax revenue in fiscal year 2024 than 2023.
Well, actually, great question. Our budget this year for 23 is 5.7. So we're going up from where we actually budgeted, and we're keeping an eye. I think there's been a lot of conversation about what is going to happen with the economy. And there's some stats that have already come out in the first month where the economy is headed. But I can tell you from all the surveys that are done, I can tell you 95% of the traveling public in this country have planned trips over the next 6 months. So there's still so much pent-up demand for people to continue to make up for travel that they didn't get to make 2 years ago. We're confident the numbers will continue to move forward from what we've budgeted. But we don't have an issue staying kind of behind the curve, so we protected ourselves in case there's a little bit. A negative 1% GDP growth can potentially mean negative 4% in hotel revenue. So that's one thing we take a look at. But overall, we're extremely confident in what we've seen and what we're predicting and what the tourism economists are predicting, that it's not slowing down. There's still a lot of demand, and we'll see that in the next year with a little bit of protection on the backside.
And
Yeah.
there's, without the addition of additional hotel rooms, we can only bring so many people to spend the night in Cabarrus County. And there are some things on the horizon that are coming in, but not expected for next fiscal year, so.
Yeah, so bottom line is, it's just conservative budgeting, being sure. Nobody's going to criticize you if you have a
Surplus.
Surplus. It allows for these other projects that
Right.
Donna
That's
spoke
right.
about.
That's right.
Right,
It all,
exactly.
you know, that money goes into an area that the board of directors actually, we don't get to spend that surplus, the staff. We spend what is budgeted and approved, and anything over that goes into another bucket that the board can approve various projects that are tourism related.
I have a quick question. Who sets the occupancy tax rate? Is that your board of directors, or is that state statute?
It's legislated, and we are
Okay.
at 6%.
And
That is the max.
Is that consistent across the state?
Yes.
Or, okay. Just
Well,
curious, I never knew.
Well, yes and no. Mecklenburg may have a different rate than we do, but the standard rate is 6% max.
I see.
They can go back, we can go back and ask.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's typically not any more than 6.
Okay, just curious.
And other destinations have, in the state of North Carolina, have other avenues of revenue, which a food and beverage tax and transportation tax, those types of things. And those are normally in the larger urban areas.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for what you
Portion
do.
of the sales tax dedicated
Right.
to the tourism as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for what you do. And there's a lot in Cabarrus County for people to come see and enjoy, and
Back-to-back weekends.
Yeah,
We had NHRA this past weekend. We have Breakaway Festival, which is bringing about 15,000 visitors
Per day, yeah.
Friday and as well as Saturday, so about 30 total. And then in a couple weeks, we'll have the 600, so.
well, and I'm amazed, the emails that your staff sends about what's going on this week, or, just the events, and I'm shocked at how much there is going on, so.
It is,
But I
and-
enjoy seeing that.
And as everyone else has talked about, employees and trying to keep staff is a huge challenge. We had lost 2 this week, so remote work, full-time remote work is a big competitor of ours now.
I understand.
And in our line of work, we can't be
Can't do it.
remote, so we have to be in the office and be where the visitor is. So we'll go back at it again, so
Well, thank you again.
thank you all.
Thank you.
We
We appreciate
appreciate
it.
you.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item 4.2 is appointments to boards and committees. You all have received email about that earlier, as well as included in our agenda. Are there any questions or comments on those items? Okay, if not, we will move to item 4.3, proclamation for clerks to Board of County Commissioners Week. And Ms. Linker, do you have any comments you'd like to make about this item?
Just this was brought to a state association from our international association to put before our boards for approval and recognition of all clerks across the state.
Yeah, and we have a request to suspend the rules and vote on this tonight because it started yesterday. Yeah. So does anybody have any questions or comments on this item? I think maybe since will we be reading this at our regular meeting? Since we're voting on it tonight? So I think maybe for the benefit of the public, I will read the proclamation. And this is proclamation clerks to the Boards of County Commission Week, April 30th through May 6th, 2023. whereas it is imperative to the democratic process that a well-informed citizenry participates in the operation of their local government, and whereas the office of the clerk to the board provides the communication link between the citizens, the local governing body, and administrative departments and local government partners, and whereas the position of clerk is one of the oldest in local government, dating at least to biblical times, and whose term has long been associated with the written word, so it is that modern-day clerks are official record keepers for their counties. And whereas North Carolina law requires every Board of Commissioners to appoint a clerk, and the clerk continues in that position at the pleasure of the board, and whereas the clerk's most significant statutory duties concern the preparation, filing, and safeguarding of local government records, but the statutory duties constitute only a portion of what the clerk actually does. And whereas the clerk plays a vital role in county government and provides the written record needed to ensure that the board is accountable to the county's citizens and to other public and private officials. And whereas the clerk is sometimes described as the hub of the wheel in local government because of the central work that the clerk plays in the government's communication network. And whereas as local government becomes larger and more complicated, the clerk's role as a professional, dispassionate provider of information to citizens, government officials, and the media becomes more and more important. And whereas clerks have the opportunity to participate in the North Carolina Association of County Clerks, a very active professional association of public officials dedicated to improving the professional competency of clerks through regular, regional, and statewide educational opportunities. And whereas in cooperation with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Government and International Institute of Municipal Clerks, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks helps to sponsor a nationally recognized examination-based certification program that culminates in receipt of the designation of certified municipal clerk. Whereas in addition, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks and the School of Government sponsor state certification programs leading to the designation of North Carolina Certified County Clerk, as well as opportunities for experienced clerks to obtain the continuing professional education needed to remain state certified or to earn an advanced master clerk designation. And whereas in addition to conducting educational programs, the North Carolina Association of County Clerks also directly assists clerks on the job with mentoring programs to provide guidance to assist clerks in their day-to-day work. And whereas clerks, upon their own initiative, participate in these certification and education programs, including annual meetings of the North Carolina Association of County Clerks and the International Institute of Municipal Clerks, which not only improve the operation of their office, but through their achievements and awards bring favorable publicity to the counties in which they serve. And whereas clerks are involved at the state level, as well as in potential legislative and other matters of interest, and whereas although clerks work for the boards of county commissioners, they truly provide public service. Now therefore, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize the week of April 30th through May 6th, 2023 as Clerks to the Board of County Commissioners Week, and extends our appreciations to our clerk to the board, Lauren Linker, and to our deputy clerk to the board, Angela Poplin, and to all county clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the county they represent. And all of that is so very true, and we depend heavily on Lauren, and we appreciate what you do for us. Lauren is also very actively involved in the state association, and what position do you hold there this year?
This year, I am not on the board. Last year, I was treasurer.
Treasurer of the board last year, and it was my honor to be present when they had their state convention here in Cabarrus County, and which certainly brought additional recognition to our county. And so we thank you for what you do for that organization and what you do for us every day.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that the seal at the top of that resolution actually came from a Cabarrus County high school student. They helped us from our state association to create a new branding package, and so that is a student from Cabarrus County that created a state organization's branding and marketing logo. So that is all over the state of North Carolina.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the proclamation. Do I hear a motion to suspend the rules to take action on this item? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and at this time, I would entertain a motion to adopt the proclamation as presented. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and thank you again. And we move now to item 4.4, Cabarrus Partnership for Children Provider Appreciation Day Proclamation. Very much the same as the other one, and this will take place prior to our next regular meeting. So we would like to vote on this one tonight, and I will read this one as well. Whereas Cabarrus County Partnership for Children and other local, state, and national organizations are recognizing child care providers on this day, and whereas child care provides a safe, nurturing place for the enrichment and development of millions of children nationwide and is a vital force in our economy, and whereas the pandemic illuminated how indispensable child care providers are for the well-being and economic security of North Carolina's young children, families, and communities. Whereas child care programs, which are mostly small businesses, run and staffed predominantly by women, are still recovering from health and financial hardships stemming from the pandemic, while they have continued to meet the needs of our families. And whereas North Carolina recognizes that child care has been a lifeline for families, communities, and the economy, and as such, has provided much-needed support to providers to help sustain the viability of child care by providing stabilization grants and additional support for Smart Start. Whereas our future depends on the quality of the early childhood experiences provided to young children today, support for high-quality child care represents a worthy commitment to our children's future. Now therefore be it resolved that we, the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners, hereby proclaim May 12th, 2023 as Provider Appreciation Day in Cabarrus County, North Carolina, and urge all citizens to recognize child care providers for their important work in our community. Commissioners, do I hear a motion to suspend the rules to act on this proclamation? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes, and I would entertain a motion to adopt the proclamation as presented. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Just to emphasize that how important child care is to our community. We need to do everything we can, in my opinion, to to expand on that industry. There are many people that need quality childcare that are having a difficult time getting it. And so it's a very important to our economy and to our job producers that come in, so that those folks can have their children properly cared for while they work at these important jobs. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. Thank you. Next up is item 4.5 from Central Line of Workforce Development Consortium, a resolution of Articles of Association and Agreement for the Central Line of Workforce Development Consortium. And I think Mike is going to talk
Yeah,
about that one.
Just to give you an update, they do adopt or re-adopt their rules of procedure in every 4 years. I think Commissioner Strang, you're on this. Would you like to elaborate any more than that? No? Okay, we're good. Yeah, so every 4 years, they need to re-adopt the resolutions and their bylaws and everything that's there. So it's all in there for your review, and then we can vote on it at the next meeting. No, that's right. Yeah, I had not seen anything that had been changed in there, so it would be business as usual, but they have to, by state statute, they have to re-adopt it every 4 years.
Okay, any questions, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, we will move to item 4.6, authorization for one-time purchases for educational partners, and I think Rodney has that one.
So I will start, and then we have some guests that'll speak briefly to the use of the funds. But as you know, we had our Medicaid hold harmless revenues exceeded budget by about $6.1 million. The board approved some county purchases, a lot of those for the sheriff's office back in April. Those totaled about $2.8 million. And so this agenda item would appropriate an additional $1.8 million, just over that, for our educational partners. $1.5 million going to Cabarrus County Schools, $183,000 going to Kannapolis City Schools, and then because of the requirement by the state, we have to also send money to the charter schools based on an equal per pupil allocation. So that total is just over $1.8 million. And so we have some folks in the room. I'll have Carol and Sarah come up and briefly talk about, for the Cabarrus County Schools side of it, that $1.5 million, how that will be used from a curriculum and professional development standpoint.
Thank you, Rodney, and good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for the chance to come back again and share with you our need for these one-time costs totaling right at $1.5 million. These needs were summarized in the 2023-2024 budget request that I shared last week. So they were vetted through the process that I shared with you all as it related to our local budget development process and the zero-based budgeting approach, and summarizing our needs, not our wants or our dream list. So this is just an extension of that conversation. And so Sarah Reeves, who is our amazing Chief of Curriculum and Instruction, as you remember, last week we talked about most of our expansion asks relate to curriculum and instruction, which is what faces our students directly. And so Sarah's going to share some details behind the one-time costs that we're requesting 1.5 in additional funding.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. So really, these one-time costs, I would say, are related to three buckets. The first of which is around teaching and learning and providing advanced academic experiences for our students, specifically in the middle school level, in selecting curriculum resources that help give all of our students in Cabarrus County Schools a guaranteed experience in terms of access to rigorous, high-quality texts. We've had the opportunity to be able to expand upon this in elementary, given the state funding related to Read to Achieve, but very candidly, there is not that explicit funding source that comes from the state level to be able to provide that level of resource for our secondary teachers. We know that we are working with a very different landscape in terms of the professionals that we are working with. We are having a lot more beginning teachers, and so we firmly believe that not only is this going to help with transparency in curriculum so that we can help share with our families what it is that their students are learning, but it's also going to be able to allow us to professionally develop and train and give the high quality resources to our teacher workforce that is ever changing. The second bucket, which we are incredibly excited about, really addresses our early learning strategic priority. And so it's actually going to the use in terms of purchasing curriculum materials as well as furniture for our play-based kindergarten pilots. So you may have heard about this, but what we're really working towards is adopting a developmentally appropriate kindergarten model that allows for more play-based, inquiry-based instruction. We are incredibly excited about this. We've actually piloted it at 5 of our elementary schools this year, and we have seen tremendous results, not only in terms of a reduction in disciplinary offenses with our kindergarten students, but also in terms of academic achievements. And so we want to scale this pilot over the next 3 years. This request is designed to go towards furniture and curriculum supplies to be able to scale this pilot. I firmly believe we will be models in the state once this pilot is fully operational, and we are very excited about the work. We actually have the opportunity to share this at the State Board of Education meeting on Wednesday. So this will be a huge win for us in terms of being able to give the staff those resources. And then last but not least is just around high quality professional learning experiences. So really being able to level set after the pandemic. We know that we've talked about learning loss. We know that there are academic needs, there are social emotional needs that our students are still up against. And so a lot of the budget requests specifically pertain to professional organizations that will be able to provide high-quality professional development for our teachers in specific areas that are very specialized that we might not be able to provide the professional learning for at a district level, or at a national level is going to continue to support us. Things like pre-AP training, advanced teacher roles training, those are the types of things that we're looking towards to be able to help support the infrastructure as we move forward with our strategic plan.
Great. Thank you. Any questions, commissioners?
If not, I'll have KCS come up quickly.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you.
So we have the superintendent and I think Dr. Triolo with us, and they'll talk briefly about their 183,000.
Thank you for an opportunity to be back in front of you this evening. So we've talked about a couple different sessions about the science of reading implementation in Kannapolis City Schools, and we're part of cohort 2 as far as the statewide implementation. And we've also talked about kind of the rollout and where we are in that process. And the timing is really good for us as we are currently going through our literacy adoption to support the science of reading. Our teachers will have completed all the letters training, which happens in conjunction or before. It's the precedent to the science of reading implementation. They will complete that in November of this year. So Dr. Triolo is going to talk about kind of what the academics team has done, what they have, kind of the runway they have set up for the implementation.
Thank you for having us. As Mr. Gary has mentioned, we're wrapping up the letters training, and as we close out that session with cohort 2, we're looking at providing our teachers. We have 70 teachers in grades 3 through 5 that need access to the resources that align to the science of reading. So what we're doing right now is going through an adoption process. We're engaging our instructional coaches, our teachers. We will have an opportunity for community members, parents to vet the curriculum choices, and then we're looking for an adoption in the fall. The funds, these funds would go toward the procurement of the curriculum, but the biggest portion is going to be tied toward professional development. It's not always just about the resource, but how teachers use the resource. And so we're looking at a robust plan for professional development for those teachers, for our instructional assistants, for our exceptional children teachers, as well as for our building leaders, our instructional coaches, assistant principals, and principals, so that we have a full-fledged approach toward this launch of the curriculum. It's a significant need for us, but we're excited about the outcomes.
Great. Questions, commissioners? I have just one question. I mean, are you really sincere when you say you're happy to appear before us twice within 5 days?
Pulling up in the parking garage, I felt like we should be on payroll.
Thank you.
But yes, we are. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Anything else on that one? That covers it. All right, then we will move to item 4.7 from Finance, Capital Project Fund completions. We welcome Jim Howden to talk about that item.
Good evening, Commissioners. Each year, Finance Department looks at the County Capital Project Fund 380 and the Schools Capital Project Fund 390. And we review it for any completed projects, and if they are completed, we remove it from the fund. And if there's any additional funds or excess funds left over, we transfer those to the Community Investment Fund. So this motion is to approve the budget amendment, which lists those projects and for Fund 380 and 390 and the corresponding project ordinances. And I can go through some of those projects that were completed or answer any questions.
Questions for Jim? There was one question that I had, but you know, it might be on the subsequent item. And I think the question that I was going to ask, which would be somewhat relevant to this, is these amounts are not for a particular budget year. This is just for what was allocated for this project, which might extend over
Multiple years. That is correct.
multiple years.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
correct.
Great. Okay, any other questions, Commissioners? Okay, well, I think you have the next one as well. CARES Act Relief Fund 440.
Yes, sir. Similar situation, Finance evaluated Fund 440, which is the CARES Relief Fund. This fund is where we monitor all of our COVID-19 expenditures, either from CARES or from ARPA. And the corresponding budget amendment and project ordinances is to remove any of those projects that are complete.
Okay, questions on this one?
I just noticed, Jim, that on this particular fund, all of the funds that were allocated have been spent. Is that correct?
That is correct. For these projects, yes, sir.
Okay, that closes that out. Okay.
Yes.
All right, if there are no other questions, we'll move to the next one, Department of Aging Fund 532.
All right. For this multi-year fund, we evaluate and look at to see if any additional revenues have come in more than what we budgeted. And if so, we want to make a budget amendment to record those revenues and the corresponding expenses. That way, the various departments can use these funds. So for Fund 532, Department of Aging, we are estimating an additional $4,947 coming in this year. And so we have a budget amendment to record that and a corresponding project ordinance.
Okay, questions on that one? All right, then we'll move to item 4.10, JCPC budget revisions.
All right, this one might be a little bit more detailed. There's actually I think there's going to be three motions when I'm done. But the first item, Fostering Solutions, was evaluating one of their contracts with one of their vendors and decided that the vendor is not providing the service that they agreed upon. So they have canceled that contract. Those funds have come back into the bucket for JCPC. And we have two options. We can send that money back to the state, or we can do what they call an in-county transfer. And that's the avenue that the JCP Council has agreed to do. We voted on this and approved it. And Fostering Solutions is going to reduce their budget, and we're going to allocate those funds to the Get Hired program, the Shift Mentoring program, and YDI Vocational and Career Development Academy programs. And a separate item within JCPC, YDA Family Life Skills Academy would like to modify their overall budget. They want to modify their in-kind allocation from solely space to using volunteer hours. JCPC, the council also voted on this and approved it at our last meeting. The unique thing with these are that the NCDPS deadline for these actions, because it's this year's budget, is today. We have to have it submitted by midnight tonight. So I'll glad to answer any questions, but I would ask the board to suspend the rules of procedure so we can vote on these two items tonight.
Okay, commissioners, questions or comments on this item? I think Commissioner Meismer serves as our liaison to the JCPC Board. I did that for a number of years prior, and this is not uncommon, that a particular program, as they progress through the year, finds that they are not able to complete services, and there are other programs that are in need of additional funding, so this is quite a regular occurrence. At this time, I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules of procedure to act on this. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. And at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve budget revisions with in-house transfer of funds between programs for the JCPC. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes. I would at this time entertain a motion to approve youth development initiatives to modify their local in-kind funding from in-kind space to volunteer hours. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. All opposed, no. That motion passes.
Jim, just for quick,
Yes, sir.
they weren't reducing their money, they were adding to with their in-kind funding.
They were actually just transferring it from solely free space to also using volunteer hours. They weren't, for them, they were not increasing anything, it was just moving some money to make sure they were covered.
Yeah. Okay. Next item, 4.11, lottery funding. Jim again.
As everyone knows, we receive lottery proceeds each year to be used for school projects. In fiscal year 2023, we budgeted in the Community Investment Fund to use these funds for debt service related to public schools. What we're asking for tonight, or it doesn't need to be voted on tonight, but is for the Cabarrus County School application for these funds of $2,017,100, and the Kannapolis City School application of $282,900, which totals $2.3 million. So we're asking the board to authorize the chairman to execute these applications, to release the funds from the North Carolina Lottery Fund, and approve the associated budget and project ordinances.
Questions on that item? This is also a standard thing that we do each year, and that breakdown between Kannapolis City Schools and Cabarrus County Schools is based on the per pupil ratio, correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. All right, then we move to item 4.12, lottery proceeds allocated for Rowan County Schools within the Kannapolis City School District.
So the lottery proceeds for Kannapolis City Schools that are located in Rowan County are held by our lottery fund. They are in our lottery disbursement account here at Cabarrus County. We are the caretakers of those funds, and we're responsible for the revenues and expenditures of those funds. Rowan County will be submitting a request for $272,148.50 from the state of North Carolina to be used for debt service. But again, because it's a pass-through through our general ledger, we need the board to approve a budget ordinance and a budget amendment allocating those funds.
Okay, questions on that item?
How do we become responsible for the money flowing through us?
That I don't know when that started. I'm making the assumption that because it's Kannapolis City Schools, all of it comes to Cabarrus County. And it's actually tracked separately within the system. But we have Rowan's portion and our portion. I don't know.
Just seems like the state would split it.
Yeah, I think it's just because we have the majority of the students for Kannapolis City Schools.
Just some kind of agreement. Okay, just curious.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll move to item 4.13, Sheriff's Department Fund.
Fund 461 is the Sheriff Department Fund. This is another multi-year fund. We record federal and state funds that we receive for the sheriff's department. And again, we review these funds to see if there's any additional income or revenue for the year. We are estimating an additional $67,084 in funds that we would like to record so the sheriff's department can spend that.
Okay, questions on that item? All right, we'll move to 4.14, Small Project Fund.
And again, an additional multi-year fund. This is Fund 460, our small project fund. We have multiple departments within this fund, Register of Deeds, Community Development, Soil and Water, Board of Elections. And it's a similar situation where we receive state and federal grants. This is where we record them. We're looking at an additional $470,637 that will be allocated to this fund. And we'd like to approve the budget amendment and the budget ordinance.
And the question that I had on this one was this also, the totals that we see in this ordinance is a multi-year fund. That does not mean that deferred tax collections were $190,000 last year. That's over some period of time?
Yes, sir. You are correct. It's a multi-year fund, yes.
Okay. And for example, educational farming, 347,000, that also is over a period of
Yes, sir.
time.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting, local agricultural preservation projects, over that period of time, we've invested close to $5 million in that.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that is of note. That is the majority of that fund. Questions, comments, commissioners? Okay, hearing none, we will move to item 4.15, and Jim will be joined by Rodney and Kyle to talk about the Afton Ridge Library and, as we just learned, Active Living Center.
Yeah, so the new Afton Ridge Library and Active Living Center, estimated cost is $30.4 million. We have $2.4 million already contributed by the general fund. We are asking for an additional $28 million in future debt services to pay for the remaining portion. Of course, that comprises of engineering, construction, furniture and equipment, land improvements, et cetera. So we're asking the board to approve the allocation of $28 million from future debt proceeds, corresponding budget amendment, project ordinance, and a reimbursement resolution, which allows us to pay ourselves back for any money we spend out of the general fund.
And since we haven't talked about this project in a while, so the initial project budget was about $25 million for the construction piece. So you can see a little bit of inflation there with the $28 million. And then this project is broken into two separate debt issuances. So because it's a public-private partnership, the first piece of it is the upfit of the building that we'll be leasing from Childress Klein. That will be about $17.5 million. And then that's in 2024. And then we will come back 2 years later in 2026 and acquire the building from Childress Klein. And that's at a pre-negotiated rate, and that'll be about $10.3 million. So that's the total project cost over the course of those 2 years. The county attorney has been working with their legal counsel on some amendments that we need to the public-private partnership agreement. Based on these numbers, we will get those hopefully revised, and they are still hoping to complete construction. And I say hoping because I am not personally optimistic of a late 2025, late 2024 opening. So December 2024 is what they're shooting for. I still think it's going to push into 2025 for an opening date. Anything you want to add, Kyle, that I may have missed?
No, that about covers it, sir.
So we're happy to take any questions you may have about the project. We're going through the design process right now. The Childress Klein has selected the contractor. Because this is a public-private partnership, they do the contractor selection. They consulted with us on that, and then we will use that same contractor for both the building itself and then also the upfit of the interior.
Questions, commissioners?
Just one quick question. What's going to be the square footage of that
40,000.
40,000?
Have we ever been in a situation like this before where it was a private, public part?
We have not.
So this is all
the
new?
First, yes,
Okay.
and it has been a learning curve.
And so you said after 2 years, we will acquire the property, and that's included in this figure. So why is it that we're gonna wait 2 years to acquire the property?
So the short answer is that that's what the agreement allows. So the agreement allows us to purchase the property after 1 year of leasing it from the developer, and then the developer answer is it converts from short-term capital gains to long-term capital gains. So there's a tax reason that they want us to lease it for a year.
And then during the period of time when we're leasing, who is responsible for upkeep, maintenance? Will we be responsible for everything, basically?
We will, I believe, Kyle, per the terms of the agreement.
Shell and interior, correct.
And so this, this number also reflects the 2 years of leasing from them?
No, this is just the construction budget, so we will have a lease payment of $746,000, somewhere in that ballpark, that we were responsible for 1 year.
But we're gonna be doing this for 2 years, though, is that correct?
The lease should only be 1 year
Okay.
of a lease payment.
Okay. And where do we have that money budgeted?
It would be in the general fund. It's in the 5-year plan, but it's not
Okay.
currently budgeted.
Okay. And do we have any monies in the capital improvement fund that could go towards this, or?
In terms of pay-go, rather than debt?
Yeah.
Yes, that would be an option.
How much could we take out of that fund to?
It would depend on what projects were not, so we'll have in a couple weeks with the recommended budget, you'll see how we're recommending spending the pay-go money. So any of those projects, if you deferred them and you wanted to use the money towards debt, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
Or if we shifted the money over to this project, then we would either not do them or have to
Right.
take on for those as well.
Right. Depending on what the recommendation of those projects are.
Correct.
You know. And so that will be part of the budget, you said? Okay.
And we will see the recommended budget in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Right.
So the same night that we vote on this, is that, the same night we'd be.
Other questions, comments? We've been talking about this project for a while. When did this begin?
I believe I've been here going on 4 years, and they were talking about it before I got here, so.
Yeah, so it's been in the works for quite a while.
How did it come to be that the Childress Klein picks the engineer or architect for all of this?
So that was the way the development agreement was written. The way the public-private partnership statutes are written, you have two choices. One, you can do it on your own as a county, but then we have to go through the procedures that are prescribed from a procurement standpoint. The second option is you allow the private partner to do the contractor selection, and you piggyback off of that. The reason that's more advantageous for us is we want one contractor. If we go through our own process using our procurement procedures, we could end up with a separate contractor, and the two of them would have to work on the same project, and that could be complicated.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, anything else? All right, thank you, gentlemen. We move now to item 4.16 from Human Resources, Compensation Projects. Welcome, Lundy Covington.
Thank you and good evening. You know, if I'm coming before you, if it's not a request for a personnel ordinance change, it is about money. So unlike some of our other speakers, I am going to be requesting some money for a couple of different options. So I want to start with the the sign-on bonus and referral bonus program. And actually, that is something that you all brought to us in the conversation last month. So since that time, we've gone back together and kind of talked about it within the HR team. We've talked with county management. We've talked with a few of our key departments. And hopefully, can you switch over maybe to the other one first, Lauren, so they can see the guidance, and I'll switch back to some of the positions. We've tried to put together a program that we think we can easily manage. So the ask for you all is for funding, kind of a one-time fund out of your contingency budget for $300,000. And the idea is if we establish this, we would utilize that while the funding lasts for the positions that are approved. So I can show you the grid in just a moment that we're kind of working on as far as the positions we feel would be appropriate to this. But the thought is county management could approve positions to come on or off of that list as needed, if you're okay with that structure. So as far as what we're recommending, trying to find numbers that would be appealing to applicants, but also not cost prohibitive for this pool of money. And also not problematic for existing staff. So the proposal is that we would do $2,500 for approved positions as new hires. They would receive that money basically up front. So after completing their first 2 weeks of employment, we would go ahead and pay out that money. That's the incentive to come work for us. Although if they don't stay with us, we would like to do a clawback to take that money back. I've talked briefly with our general counsel. He'll do a little further research on that, but we feel like with an agreement on the front end, we would be able to establish that where if they work for 2 years, basically they've worked off the entire amount. If they leave a year in, we could do half of that as a clawback. So that was kind of the idea, to make sure that people aren't just coming over, quickly taking the money and then jumping somewhere else. Employees would need to be either new employees or somebody who's been gone for a while, and we've kind of debated that, felt like maybe a 1-year mark would be reasonable. If somebody comes back before a year is up, they're entitled to reinstatement of certain benefits, like their vacation accruals, et cetera. After 1 year, we basically treat them like a new hire. So we felt like that window might be reasonable to allow somebody who we want to bring back, but again, we don't want people hopping from one jurisdiction to another. And then as far as criteria for the positions, we really were trying to drill in on which positions could benefit the most from that. So you can see on the list, we're looking at positions that have either been open for a very long time singularly, or it's a perpetual opening, meaning we have a lot of those types of positions. We're looking at things, the number of vacancies. If it's a one-off, maybe it doesn't belong on the list, but if it's a really hard to fill one-off, maybe it does. So it's kind of a combination of these factors that we would like county management to review and sign off on. Another factor was whether we are getting any qualified applicants, so a very small pool, meaning we just aren't attracting them, maybe based on our pay rates or maybe based on the market. That would be another factor that we would look at. So that's the sign-on bonus piece, but matching that, we would like to also recommend a referral bonus for our employees to benefit from if they refer anyone to any of these positions that are designated as difficult to fill. So for the existing employees who refer someone into a position, we're looking at a $1,000 payment to them broken into two $500 increments. The first $500 would be after the person has been with us for 6 months, the second after they've been with us a year. So we wouldn't recommend the clawback with our existing employees, but they would get it on a delayed basis. That gives them maybe some incentive to help that coworker or person they recommend get to those probationary sign-off periods and stay with us. We would look to make that available for basically employees, and if it's a position in another department, maybe a member of leadership, but trying to really not overcompensate employees who have a role in this. For example, human resources, where we're recruiters. We have members maybe of county management who also would be in that role to bring people into the positions. But if we have somebody who's a leader in our sheriff's office and they make a recommendation for somebody we hire in tax, and it's not a department they have connection with, then we think maybe it would be appropriate to recognize them. But that could be on an exception basis with county management sign off for some of those situations. If there are multiple people who are vying for it, we could either split it or we go with the first to recommend. We would match up the information on the applicant who referred them to the employee who's saying they referred them, and try to pair that up. I think those were most of the key points with that. The employee does have to be on payroll at the time we would make the payout, so if they make a referral and then they leave us, then they wouldn't be entitled to it. We couldn't pay it other than through our payroll system. So that's what we've kind of thought through as far as the criteria and the program. So I don't know if you have any questions on that before we kind of take a look at the proposed list. Does that seem to match with what you were?
I just have one question. You said on the, not the referral, the slide before this, the sign-on bonus, it's 2 weeks. So they have to work with us for full-time for 2 weeks. Does that seem short, or is that like an average of how other people are doing it?
Yeah.
It seems very short.
That's the first payroll period, and I think for people who sign on, the expectation is you're getting that up front. So that will be what we're looking at, and we felt like pairing that with the clawback means, yes, we're going to give it to you up front because we want you to come work here. For some situations, it would probably be considered kind of a part of that offer. If we can't offer them exactly what they need on their ongoing salary, at least we can bring them in. So what we've seen, that is reasonable. There are some who do it in stages, but it really gets administratively challenging for us to do it that way, and we feel like we'll get more attention, it'll get more reaction if we pay it up front, and then we have the ability to pull it back if they leave us.
Is there any way to make the sign-on bonus 2,000 and add the extra 500 to the employee referrals? Because we want to take care of the employees at our retreat. That gives them an extra 500, while still, I mean, $2,000 sign-on bonus is attractive, but you give our existing employees an extra 500 that way. Or
Yeah, we're open to whatever the feedback is. You know, there are some jurisdictions who are doing larger amounts, and certainly we were trying to be cognizant of not going too high with that number. A thought, too, that we've had is there might be certain situations where the base amount needs a little adjustment, and, you know, maybe we say 2,000 is the standard, and then if there's some need for more, we could take that to the county manager, assuming funds are allowable. So if that's agreeable, I think would be fine with us. We definitely feel like we want to reward our existing employees.
So what happens, so this clawback, well, first I'll say, you know, I'm fine with this proposal, but with the clawback period, so say Sally Sue gets hired, she gets $2,500, then she decides to leave at month 8. Now, how do we go about getting that $2,500? I mean,
We're going to work with general counsel on that. You know, if there are certain amounts we have in our accruals, we can potentially use that. We have to make sure we don't violate, you know, Fair Labor Standards Act and going deeper than their what we're allowed to take with minimum wage. So we'll talk with him about the best way to proceed. You know, what I've seen personally is that I think sometimes just having that threat out there is a deterrent. You know, people, if they know they're on a 2-year commitment, they tend to try a little bit harder to make it. They don't jump at the first sign, whether we can actually get it back. And in some cases, we may not be successful, but I think that threat of it will come back may keep people in their chairs.
Yeah.
That's the hope.
okay. Let's say it may cost us more to go after that $2,500,
It-
but I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it should be there. I mean, just the thought of it there. But it's not a situation where they have direct deposit that you can go retrieve the funds out of their checking account. It would be more of like a letter would be sent. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
we have a
final
similar-
pay.
Similar situation when, if we send somebody to a training class that's, you know, $2,000 and they leave right after they finish the class, then we're going to do the same process with them to get a portion of that reimbursed.
Okay.
There are some circumstances where we could, there are some circumstances where we could deduct it directly from, we've done that in the training situations like Mr. Downs was talking about, where we could deduct it out of that final payroll, but we just it just depends on the position, because if it's a lot easier for a non-exempt employee than it is for an hourly employee, because then we have other things we have to consider. So it wouldn't be every case where we're just sending a demand letter and hoping they pay it back. It would have some teeth.
So, yeah, that part is still to be determined a little bit, but if you're in agreement, our goal would be to start this for offers June 1st or after, so we've got a little bit of time to kind of finesse those details, and the new employees who are under this would be asked to sign an agreement with us when they come on board that spells out very clearly what the expectations would be.
I think it's an excellent proposal. I do not have a problem with the adjustment Commissioner Workman suggested. And if I understood you correctly, you said we could include the flexibility in the plan that with county manager approval, you could potentially increase that to 25.
Yeah, I think an example might be if somebody that we are close, but we're not quite there on the salary, and we don't want to add it for equity reasons to existing employees to the base salary. I think that might be a situation where we might go forward and say, hey, what if there are funds available? You know, again, we've seen higher and lower numbers, but we want it to be enough to get people's attention and make them, you know, come to Cabarrus versus other alternatives. So I think, you know, 2,000 is a excellent start, and then putting more in the hands of our existing employees, I'm sure that would be much appreciated.
Okay, so what if we just changed that to say 25 instead of 2? And you're kind of guessing, trying to project the number
Exactly.
that you would need. So that would just determine how far this $200,000 would go. It would not go as far if we increase that.
Yeah, and, you know, one thought is if you would do a one-time, and if we saw that it was beneficial, we could always come back and ask for an additional amount. So if you wanted to take it a little slower to start, I think we're just looking to you for your thoughts. If we can maybe show the chart, maybe that'll give you kind of a feel for the positions we're thinking. And this was included in your packet, so you can see some of that detailed data that'll be a little hard to see on the screen. But we did talk with some of our key departments that are having some staffing challenges, and we are recommending basically 4 positions in the public safety area that would be eligible for this. We're recommending 3 positions in human services, and then we have 2 in the IM area. There are a few others that you'll see highlighted. Those are positions we considered because they do have some vacancy issues right now, but we've either recently solved them or we feel like now is not the time to add them. But, you know, if we were to suddenly see that we had a huge deficit in one of these areas, we might come back and say, could we add? So we're looking kind of at 9 positions right now. Income maintenance caseworkers are a position that, while we're okay at the moment, once the Medicaid expansion request comes through, if we have 30 vacancies for that department, we might ask for those to be added as well. But again, the more positions we have on, the less this is going to stretch out. So we're just trying to balance that. So I don't know if county management.
I would feel comfortable with going ahead as proposed with the stipulation that you could come back to us after 1 month and say, this is working great, or this is not giving us the results that we desire, and maybe we need to bump it up a little bit to make it work. That's at the pleasure of the board as to how they'd like to proceed on that.
I'm okay too, Mr. Chairman, as it is, but I wanted to get clarity. Our agenda item says 200,000, Lundy. Is it 300,000?
Rodney and I did talk about that after submitting it, and it looked at the number of positions and felt like 200 probably wouldn't go very far, especially with the number of vacancies for, sheriff's office and SWATs, for example. I'll talk about them in another moment.
Yeah.
So I think we did kind of change that after, and you could maybe speak to the funding, or if you have any other thoughts.
Yeah, given the time of year, the board contingency account has north of $1 million, and so we felt comfortable with 300,000. I think we worked out the numbers at 200,000. That's roughly 80 sign-on bonuses, and that doesn't include any referral bonuses. We just felt like with the number of vacancies we have that we're going to need more than that to really make a dent.
Well, I felt like 200,000 probably wasn't going to be enough anyway, like you said, this time of the year. But I just wanted to tell you just a real quick little story. I had a guy out at my house here a few weeks ago to do some repairs, and we got to talking about sign-on bonuses and referral bonuses and things like that. And he voluntarily said, well, let me tell you what my company does for me. And naturally, I was interested in that because we're talking about it. He said, the company, if Joe hires, if I recommend Kenny, then I get a $2,500 bonus for recommending Kenny. And if Kenny stays around for a year, 1 year, he gets a $5,000 bonus. Now, that's a little steep for county money, taxpayer money, but I thought that was very, very steep, very good. This will go a long ways. It'll help us fill positions that we've had vacant for a while. And I think it's a good plan, Lundy, and I appreciate your effort.
Okay.
Other comments?
I'm okay moving forward as well, as you suggested.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the 200,000 versus 300,000, because my memory was saying 300,000 and my page was saying 200,000. So 300,000 is what we're talking about going forward with.
And 2,000 for sign-on and 15 for referral. Is that the consensus or the?
I'm fine with that, and I'm okay with, you having flexibility on this. If you feel like it should go one way or the other in a certain circumstance, I have no problem with that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I would agree with that, and I'm fine with it. I do have one, just kind of twofold question. So if I know we got the clawback for, if they quit, what happens if we terminate them?
My understanding is that it wouldn't matter as long as it's noticed that as long as we provide notice that if you are not there for the time period, then we can pull that back. Then it's essentially a forfeited wage. We could include, that's a good point, we could include more in the agreement. The way we had discussed it with HR is putting it in an agreement when they sign on, when they get that offer letter, they also have an agreement, and that agreement spells out what we're talking about, the terms of how long and things like that. We could put, there's nothing that prevents us from putting performance metrics in there either.
Might not be a bad idea, just nothing major, but something to hold them accountable, might not be a bad idea.
Yeah, if you leave voluntarily or involuntarily.
Right, yeah. So, there's, as long as we spell that out, then my understanding is we'll at least be compliant in being able to take back that money. Then we get into Commissioner Meismer's concern. But like I said, I think it's going to depend on the situation.
Okay, question, Lundy, you just said 2,000 and 1,500. I thought we were at 2,500 and 2,000.
It was 15.
It was 2,500 and 1,000.
Is that, okay, gotcha. Right.
Yeah, so to put it 2,000 as a sign-on, but then give that 500 that was there for the referrals, so it'd bump it up to 1,500.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Okay. Yeah.
And probably we will have more use as sign-on than referral, because not every person who's coming is a referral. But
Right.
again, we'll see how that spreads the money.
So then in that situation, can you do 2,500 instead of 2,000? If there's no referral,
Yeah.
then I'm comfortable with you going up to the 2,500.
We will need to
You may
kind
want to
of,
add the language in there, up to $2,500
Yeah.
for the sign-on bonus, and that'll give you the flexibility.
we'll work on an agreement. We'll make sure we can conquer that.
Yeah, I was going to ask your opinion. You talk to these folks. You know what motivates people to accept an offer is taking that $500 away from the sign-on bonus going to negatively impact your ability to secure employees? Because that's what it's all about.
I think in some cases, the answer is yes. In other cases, no.
And I know you
it's
can't
kinda hard
predict
to.
every-
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think people come to us with very different situations, but if we know that somebody has an offer and that 500 would make a difference, then I definitely think it would be beneficial to add that on.
I would feel comfortable leaving it at the original amount and increasing the referral portion by 500, and then you would have the flexibility to come back to us for additional funding if needed. Yeah, but that,
I'm fine with that.
I see head nods.
I mean, I think it would be good to stay within the 300 range, but you get into it and you see there's, you know, a big issue, then you still have an
yeah,
option to come
I'm-
back, you know.
And I'm saying, stay within the 300 range, and if that runs out, come back and say, this is working, and we've been able to fill X number of positions, we'd like to extend it, or not, yeah. So now you've got your 2,500, we've increased the benefit for referrals by 500,
Okay.
okay,
And then we'll come back to you and let you know how it's working out.
yeah.
Okay, and maybe some of the other projects will also assist. So the next thing I do want to mention is a request for a hot jobs study. When we talked about the last round, I mentioned there might be some times we do come back to you on occasion with jobs that we are just struggling with. And we are definitely at that point in child welfare with our SWATs. What we would like to, the social work investigation, assessment and treatment position. So what we would like to recommend is that we move a little bit ahead of our next study. We go ahead and address this group, this position only, with a range change, 2 grades, which is a 10% adjustment. What that would do is give us a much better starting point in the market to attract new applicants. But to do that, we need to contend with our existing employees. We are fighting a little bit of a wage war right now with the surrounding county, and their starting point offer is in essence about 10 grand higher for this role than ours. So doing that quick adjustment, we feel like will help immediately to make us more competitive. We would like to be able to compete for experienced workers. And with a lower salary level, unfortunately, sometimes that attracts people that maybe don't have as much experience yet. And, you know, while there's value in new hires, new grads as well, we really need a mix of that skill set. We need some of those experienced workers. So the request would be to address that group. That then, of course, opens up the next question: what do we do about those others who work around them that would be impacted? What our proposal is at this point is not to do range changes for them, because those positions really aren't as underwater right now in the market, but for an equity reason, go ahead and make an adjustment of the same percentage to those employees to kind of keep them all at their same level relative to others. So for example, the social work supervisors, a grade change of 10% is going to put them 1 grade apart. Some of these individuals are potentially earning as much or more than the supervisors. So we don't want the next issue to be that supervisors feel undervalued and they turn around and leave us. The request, though, would be to kind of advance it for that bottom group, meaning that when we do the next study, and we are looking to do that as soon as we can land some of the comp projects already on our plate, getting ready to flow through our payroll system. So we're hoping by the end of August, we can go ahead and start that study to catch up these other groups. If some of these positions have movement, what we would do is kind of use this advance against that. So for example, if the social work supervisors, the market study shows they need a 2 grade move, we've given them that equivalent already, nothing else would be due that group. If on the other hand, the market shows we need to do a 3 grade move, then we would go back and give them an extra 5%. So it's basically moving through an area we really feel is going to show some movement based on things we see already, and doing it ahead of a study that will be happening later this fiscal year. So the estimate we have based on these moves is around 75 existing employees, of right around $400,000. The money would come out of money that has been budgeted for this group. So Rodney can maybe speak to that as well, as how the funding piece would work. But again, we feel like there's value in doing this now versus waiting months and months to get to that point.
We do have money set aside in the recommended budget for next year for this market study at a global level. In the interim months between now and the end of June, we would use lap salary. And then the other thing I would note is that $400,000 is total cost. And so about half of that would be revenues from outside the county. So the cost of the county would only be about $200,000.
And so that's because these are federally funded positions.
Out of curiosity, how many positions are we, or how many vacancies do we have across the board?
As of today, for SWAT's, 11. And that's such a, safety-sensitive priority position for us. And it's been hovering, well, at or above that number. We've had as many as 20 or more. So we're making some strides, but, you bring somebody in and then you lose one, you're still just treading water. So there is still a substantial need to address this group. That's why they're on the sign-on list, as well as on this request to move along a little quicker than we normally would.
I think the only thing I would add is I spent a good part of last week meeting with this division. Probably met with more than 30 of them so far, and I have some meetings coming up this week. A lot of which we can't talk in open session, but I will say they are highly stressed. The workload is incredibly high right now, given the number of vacancies, and we do have, unfortunately, a large number that are considering alternatives. And so that's even more worrisome, because we're already short-staffed, and we have some with one foot out the door.
I have a question, Lundy. You may, and we may have it in our budget book. I don't remember seeing it. But do you have, or is there such a thing as a graph, a pie graph showing us what percentage of our budget goes toward staff, the personnel, tax benefits and all of that? The CDB just gave us their presentation, and theirs was broken down in the pie chart. And I think theirs was like 26% of their revenues. And I'm curious, what is that ratio for our county? The percentage for staff with benefits versus revenue coming into the county?
I don't know if that would be in there at this point. I can definitely go back and talk with Rosh and.
Well, and the reason I ask that, and, obviously, I want to do everything and anything we can for our employees because they're what makes us what we are. I understand that. And competition makes it harder. It makes it harder. Mecklenburg County, for example, people can go over across the county line $10,000, $15,000 more for doing the same identical job. And for us to be competitive, then obviously we have to do things. But I just wonder how far we can go, though. What is our percentage? I mean, are we getting to the point where that you're taking the mandated things like debt service, schools, and then you throw in, increasing personnel costs? I would just be curious to see where we are on how our costs are and how they have, what are they, obviously they're trending up. But revenues is trending up too. Everything's going up, so it'd just be something for information only.
Yeah, and one thing that it used to be the battle with Mecklenburg County. The county that Lundy was talking about, that's Rowan County. That's Rowan County.
Yeah, I think some of the other feedback we've received is, using Mecklenburg as an example, not only can they go across the line and make 15,000 or 20,000 more, but because Mecklenburg has more resources, their services are more siloed. And so you can go over there, make $15,000, $20,000 more, and do what in the employee's mind is less work.
Yeah, it's just
And so that perception is certainly a challenge.
I think that we should move forward with this. I don't see no problem with it. And, you know, I mean, as far as competing with Mecklenburg County, I know we have employees that have went to Mecklenburg County from all sectors and then maybe come back because I don't know who would want to work in Mecklenburg County. And then, and, you know, you're driving over there. I mean, you know, some of these jobs in Mecklenburg County probably do pay a lot more, but they probably see a lot more than probably what they want. But as far as, you know, addressing this, you know, I think we should move forward with it. I know this has been an issue for Human Services for a while, and I think we should address this as soon as possible.
I would have to agree, especially knowing there were 11 vacancies.
Well, if approved, we would hopefully put this into effect the first pay cycle after your vote. So it would be in the employees' hands in June. So, you know.
Is
right
it possible that we go ahead and suspend the rules, vote on it now?
We can't move it any
Okay.
quicker through our system. I wish we could, but we have another project we're trying to tackle.
But if you want to suspend your rules and vote on it, that'd be great, then they can
Well,
move
that's
forward.
true.
But just, the paycheck won't come in
They
quicker.
wouldn't see it any sooner.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I would say if you were willing to do that, it wouldn't hurt morale to have that,
Well,
to
I
be able to
think,
communicate
you know,
that.
I feel like to show that we're addressing this,
I'll second.
you know, I think we should go ahead and do that, and I hate that there'll be a delay before they get to see it, but at least they know that it's coming, so. I'll move to suspend the rules.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules of procedure. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And I would assume the desired motion would be to approve recommended projects for implementation as funding and project time allows in fiscal year '23 or fiscal year '24 with budget approval to the aforementioned compensation projects. Does that cover it, Lauren? No. I see, we talked about the value of clerks earlier.
It's
Yes,
kind of a wonky motion.
yes. You've got multiple projects included.
To make that motion, to move forward with this piece, maybe totally separate.
So would you phrase it to move forward with the compensation project for child welfare
Yes.
division
Yes.
and FY '20?
Okay, and is that your intention to the one item, or were you talking about both of the other item with the retention and?
I would say just for this one item for the time being.
Okay.
That would be my motion. So I so moved for the motion that was stated, or the language, the language that was stated.
Right. Is everybody
And I'll
in agreement
second that.
on
Yeah,
that?
and I'll second that.
Okay. All right, is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. That motion passes. And we will still have an item, which right now on our regular meeting agenda, it just says compensation projects. But now it will be the retention.
Sign on and referral.
And referral bonuses, hiring, retention, and referral.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, we move now to item 4.17, recommended approval of preferred alternates for Cabarrus County Library and Active Living Center at Mount Pleasant and Virginia Fall Park. And there we're using that Active Living Center word again.
The rest of it is a nameful. Sorry, come up with an acronym for all of it. So for most of the board, I've actually come in front of you for preferred alternates in the past on the courthouse project, the EMS headquarters project, and one of the projects at the firing range. For a couple of you, this might be new, and this comes up during construction manager at risk projects. So I only bring that up because we're about to go down the road of a couple more of them. So thought it would be a just a good introduction. This relates to North Carolina General Statute 133-3 requires performance standards to be used when specifying products. The statute also allows preferred brands of equipment to be bid as an alternate on the Cabarrus County Library and Active Living Center at Mount Pleasant and Virginia Foyle Park, provided that the performance standards were approved by the Cabarrus County Board of Commissioners. To be approved, the alternate must either provide a cost savings or maintain/improve the functioning of a process or system affected by the brand alternate. Approval is requested for the preferred brand alternates for the equipment as indicated on the attachment. So for each project we've brought up, we would bring an attachment, and that would have what those preferred alternates are. It just so happens that for most of the projects that you see us, the preferred alternates are the same, hence why we call them preferred alternates and why they're offering a cost savings. So an example would be a fire alarm control panel. We standardize the fire alarm control panels in our buildings. The only one that we don't have that's standardized is the jail housing, the sheriff's department, which I assure you costs us more money to operate and program than the other ones do, and so on and so forth. And this is the same way for building automation systems, which is what controls your air conditioning in your buildings, and things like Parklex panels and exterior materials. So in the case of both the courthouse and the EMS headquarters and this project, the Parklex panels, which there are the wooden-looking panels behind me, not wood, but engineered, that look like wood, those panels are all preferred alternates. So that's what this is doing, and the reason we're doing it now is the construction manager at risk for this project, whose edifice is already about to go out to bid. So this needs to be done before they go out to bid.
Questions, commissioners?
And this can go on the regular meeting. Oddly enough, I'm not in a rush as usual for you all, so.
That's a surprise.
I know. I like to
Yes.
bring a couple of them to the table.
Great. Thank you very much. And while we have you up here, item 4.18, selection of construction manager at risk for the Cabarrus County Behavioral Health Center.
I'll take this one. On February 24th, 2023, Cabarrus County advertised for construction manager at risk services for the proposed Cabarrus County Behavioral Health Center. We received 10 requests for qualifications packages on March 17th, 2023. An internal selection committee reviewed all 10 submissions and moved 2 of those firms to a short list for interviews. The interviews took place here on April 17th, and the selection committee recommends Messer Construction Company to be the construction manager at risk for the Cabarrus County Behavioral Health Center. All the 10 submissions came from firms in the Charlotte area, except for one, which was from Wilmington, North Carolina. And we're currently holding debriefing meetings with those firms who were not chosen at their request. So the requested action of the board tonight, or not tonight, is for a motion to approve the contract award and to authorize the county manager to execute the contract between Cabarrus County and Messer Construction Company, subject to revision by the county attorney. And this phase would just be for pre-construction services. So I'd be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
We had any other projects with Messer?
Yes, Messer built the parking deck as a single prime bid project, and then they were the chosen construction manager at risk on the courthouse across the street behind me. Oddly enough, one of the other finalists was also the finalist for the project across the street also. And just to give you an idea, most of you have been through it. We'll move forward with the pre-construction where they work with the design team, and specifically these days, pre-construction doesn't just deal with constructability and making sure the design team is designing something that can be easily built or within reasonably built. It's also these days is materials procurement. And the only reason I bring that up is obviously Michael will bring in front of you the GMPs, or the guaranteed maximum price amendments to those contracts as we move along. And in the other projects that we have been recently doing over the last 4 years, you've seen us splitting up the GMPs. We have 1, 2, 3, and usually that's for steel package and civil packages, and now it's electric and HVAC. So typically what you try to do is procure that stuff well in advance of ever being ready for it, because 1, it takes so long to get it. 2, the escalation is a killer.
Questions or comments? I'll, just to make sure I understand correctly, one of the big benefits, and I think you just said it.
I'm not even sure what you just said.
of
You
doing
phrased it, maybe I did.
Construction manager at risk, working in collaboration with the design team as they produce the plans for the building. If the design team comes up with something that the construction manager at risk thinks is unattainable or unreasonable, they have the opportunity to have that back and forth with the design team so that adjustments can be made. As alternatively, if you just hired a design team to design the facility, start to finish, and put it out to bid, and it had these unreasonably expensive items in it, or unattainable, or whatnot, then the contractor is going to bid high enough to cover whatever hoops they got to jump through to meet those design specifications. Is that a correct?
That's the best case scenario in that instance. The worst case scenario is that the contractor bids it the way that it's designed, but there's scope design issues, and when they get into there to be able to construct it, it's not just that they gave us a high number, it's that we start taking change orders or allowances because of scope gap that came due to design groups who might not really understand how you would have to build something on that site. So yes, this is the beauty of having what we refer to as kind of our trinity, our owner, architect, and contractors. Is this allows those discussions to happen way up front, where that constructability, that gap between what I think can be built and what really can be built and what type of materials go into it and all the details, that gap shrinks so that those allowances, those contingency, those change orders, and all of that shrinks. That's an accurate statement.
So hopefully you get a better project, a quicker project, and a more cost-effective project.
Yes, with a much more positive relationship and all the things that go along with those projects that are that large, like FF&E and card readers and cameras and paths and seismic and all those nitty-gritty in the weeds that nobody sees. Yes, for those projects, that's why the construction manager at risk is beneficial.
Yeah.
Specifically, if you know enough about the projects you do and the customers that you have, and you can really look for the right type of characteristics in both your design team and your construction manager at risk.
And so we've had extensive experience with the size of the project across the street, and working with this company in that regard.
Yes, as well as
Different design team this time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, completely, and a different way of looking at things, and obviously a completely different nature of building, quite
Right.
frankly. But yes, we've had an enormous amount of experience with their process. That's what I'll have to
Right.
say it.
Great, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we will move to item 4.19, 2020-2021 Home Program Amendment to Project Activities. We're happy to have Kelly Sifford for that item.
Thank you. Many of you will remember that we came to you in 2020, and our plan was to work with the City of Concord to construct a new home on a piece of property that they had. Then COVID hit, and during that process, the price of homes went up pretty dramatically. We did not have enough funding in our 2020 home money to construct that home with them. We worked with them, we kind of waited it out to see if the pricing was going to come down. It did not. They moved on. So what I am proposing at this point is to work with Habitat in the same way. They can build the house a little cheaper with some of their volunteer labor that they use. So we're targeting 285 Academy Street. However, I want to leave the address kind of open because we do have to get through environmentals, and they purchased the property before we were involved, we being us and the city, because this will actually provide 3 lots. The city's working with them as well. But our goal is to construct a home with Habitat, potentially at this site, but could move if this site doesn't work environmentally for us because of the federal dollars. It gets a little more complicated. And so I will need to do a public hearing at the regular meeting in order to make that change if you all agree that this is the best path to go at this point.
Questions, comments? I think for us to be able to enter into a collaborative project with Habitat is a very desirable thing. Okay. All right, thank you. Item 4.20 from Planning and Development, proposed budget amendment for Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina's Healthy Home Initiative Program. Welcome, Susie Morris.
Good evening. The item that you have before you is a proposed budget amendment. This would be for us to accept the funds from the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Healthy Home Initiative Program. They don't release their funds on the same schedule as our fiscal year. They release it on a calendar year. So we will receive a total of $12,500, and that's for calendar year 2023. So we just need a budget amendment to add that into the program. And then we will also need to update the memorandum of understanding with them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for Susie? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We move to item 4.21 from the Sheriff's Office, new RMS, JMS, and CAD software contract release. We welcome Deputy Chief Burchett. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to say that title. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
We're delighted to have you.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, everyone. So, yes, what this request is to enter into a contract with Motorola Solutions for a new RMS, CAD, and JMS system. What that is, CAD, of course, is the system when every call that comes in, whether it's emergency or non-emergency, that gets entered in by our call takers and then dispatched out to police, fire, EMS. It also is our RMS is our records management system, and what that is every report, every incident report, every name file of every person that we interact with in the field, every gun permit, every pursuit, every canine interaction basically goes into our records management system. It of course has to meet public record laws. There's new legislation now a year ago that came into effect that has very specific requirements in law enforcement in North Carolina. This system has to accommodate those laws, and the current system that we have is now 14 years old. We implemented it in 2009. It's very much outdated. Unfortunately, is not being it's not being upkept at this time. Thankfully, Todd and his personnel have helped us kind of limp through the last several years. So we, approximately 2 years ago now, we decided we needed to start looking at a new system. And thankfully, we set up several focus groups throughout our agency to make sure that we got every division's input to make sure that we were getting everything we needed in the system. Again, Todd and his folks were very very helpful in that because, of course, this is a software. So everything we do goes through them. And ultimately, we came up with Motorola Solutions, which is going to meet all of our needs at this time. One of the major needs is the ability to customize reports, because Cabarrus County is going to be different than every other jurisdiction, and we need to make sure that we can create reports that fit us and our needs. And then that will also meet state reporting guidelines that will allow us to produce the types of reports that our public requests from us and that type of thing. So we are requesting that we can go forward with this contract, partially paid for by 911 funds.
So on that vein, I've been handling a lot of the contract, particulars around that. We currently have a $1.1 million, not surplus, but fund balance in our 911 budget. And because of that, the 911 fund was going to, the state was going to reduce our annual allocation by $293,000 because we had that excess funds. So they were unaware that we were doing this, and we made them aware. And on Friday, they did vote to not make that reduction. So their proposed amount that we will receive next year will be $346,000. So that'll be able to cover that. So we intend to use that 1.1 fund balance to pay for some of this. Now, it is about a $3 million project. So there are funds, about $1.9 million that will be locally funded for the RMS and the additional CAD interfaces. But we have gone through months of working with the 911 board to make sure that all the eligibility requirements are met and that they have reviewed the software to make sure that we have dotted all our I's and crossed all our T's. Additionally, we didn't have to bid this because it is North Carolina Sheriff's Association convenience contract. It is on their contract, and we participate in purchasing items off that contract. It'll take us about 14 months to implement this, is what we're projecting right now, and our intention is to sign a 5-year contract with them. Those 5 years would start ticking on the point of when we accept the software, not when we sign the contract, which is actually fairly different for a lot of software vendors. Usually they start charging you the annual maintenance the day that you sign the contract, and you eat through a lot of that maintenance software time doing the contract itself or doing the implementation itself. So Motorola, I look forward to working with them. We work with them obviously on our radio systems, and there's a lot of Travis McGee, who's running our 911 center now, is very excited about the integration between the radio system and that CAD. And like the chief just said, there are so many things that we aren't able to do with the current system. Software now has become more of an equity play for folks, and their current provider we have got caught up in that. So they got bought for the customer base, not for the product. So they're not continuing to develop the current product, or at least it appears to be their intention. We obviously don't know that for sure, but in the last couple of years, we haven't seen any advancements at all.
I noticed the participating agencies in the contract. Is that all of our fire departments or all the volunteer fire departments?
Yes, that would include support for all of our volunteer fire departments. It would not include Concord or Kannapolis.
Right. Who both operate their own 911 centers as well.
It does allow for CAD to CAD though, which has the same functionality, so our call takers can still send those calls directly to those other call taking centers.
Right. Excellent. Questions or comments, commissioners?
Just a quick note, we'll need to amend the motion to include the budget amendment that'll be associated with this. And so
Okay.
Finance is working on preparing that budget amendment, and it'll be in the packet for the regular meeting.
Okay, which is scheduled to be on our consent agenda. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item 4.22, Low-Income Household Water Assistance Program additional funding. We're happy to have Laura Light, who has very patiently waited to be the last item on the agenda.
Good evening, Commissioners. I will make this brief. Coming to you tonight with a budget amendment for our low-income energy assistance program, low-income household energy assistance for the water program. We did receive additional funding for the LIWAP program, low-income household water assistance program. So coming to you tonight with a funding authorization of $30,000. It's 100% federally funded. This was originally a 2-year temporary grant. We just learned that we are concluding and winding the program down a little bit sooner than what we had anticipated. So we will be accepting applications through the end of this month. So May 31st will be the last day that we'll be taking applications for the water program. And staff will have until July 3rd to process those applications. And then in the month of August, the state will do a one-time supplemental payment with the excess remaining funds to close out everything by September 30th as planned. So for tonight, just a matter of proposing to increase our expenditures $30,000. Again, it's 100% federal funds. Everything is reimbursable, so no county match is required. But in order for us to continue paying vendors and issue county checks, we'll be able to move over the $30,000 to cover those expenses.
Okay, questions for Laura? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, and we move now to item 4.23, which is the one that I had requested to add to the agenda, which is basically general discussion. We can always do this anyway, but I wanted to specifically mention some things that I heard at our last meeting that I felt particularly disturbing. Hopefully, it did not come from this board, but there were people at our meeting that indicated that placing an item on the consent agenda was in some way not transparent or not open to the public or trying to slip something through, which indicated to me that perhaps we haven't explained adequately enough exactly what consent agenda items are. I think if we wanted to pick an item, we've got on our regular meeting agenda that we're getting ready to vote on, we've got 19 items on the consent agenda. One of those, well, you could just pick any number of those, but and I didn't try to do this, but if you tried to add up the financial implications of every item that's on our consent agenda for our next regular meeting, I think that would include the amount of money for the active living center at Afton. If you had to pull out, again, I'm guessing there's $30 to $40 million that's being impacted in this consent agenda that's coming up at our regular meeting. And you just experienced every single one of them being discussed. And so I guess I am open for suggestions as to how we better communicate to the public how the process works. The fact that this meeting that we're involved in right now is being live streamed. It's also being shown on Channel 22, and I'm not sure the exact schedule, but it's shown multiple times on Channel 22, where we're discussing all of these items. So then when it's on our consent agenda at the regular meeting, we've got two options. We could go back through and discuss every single one of these items individually and vote on them, or we could do it the way we've been doing it by putting it on consent agenda. So, I just thought we should have some open discussion about that, if somebody thinks there is a better way to handle the business that we approve.
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with the consent agenda. I think the public thinks that this, I'm just guessing, once it's on a consent agenda, it can't come off. But I think if we educate the community and the public, say, anything can be pulled off by any one of us at any time for discussion, I don't think that the general population or public knows how easily it is to move something off of that agenda.
Yeah, if
And that may be it.
you will read our rules of procedure, and I don't have them in front of me right now, but it states, any item shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any commissioner. Doesn't require a vote, doesn't require special permission. All you have to do is just ask. Now, that, of course, is included in our amended agenda that we approved, but yeah, that could be done, that can be done then, that can be done now. The next item of business tonight is approval of the regular meeting agenda. So any of these items could be pulled off the consent agenda now, if you wanted it to be published. Of course, there's a lot of public notices of our meeting, and it says what new business is. Now, typically, there are some items that come up that may be added to new business between now and then. I guess if you wanted to be really critical, you could say that the motion that not the motion, but all of these motions on this list that we suspended the rules of procedure for tonight, if you wanted to say you were slipping something through, those would be the slipping something through items. Now, the proclamations, I think, are very non-controversial. The JCPC budget revisions were very clearly explained that today was the deadline. The other one that we did regarding compensation projects, that's one that somebody could take a stab at. Personally, I agree with it. I think it was the right thing to do. I voted for it. But, I'm just open for suggestions as how we better explain. I find it very insulting when somebody indicates that we're trying to not be transparent or to try to, and I'm not being critical of those individuals. I find it insulting that they think that, but then upon further reflection, I'm thinking, okay, what have we done to make them think that? Or what can we do different to make it more apparent that that we are being transparent? The only things that I would be concerned is if it came up at a work session and we voted on it and the public never had an opportunity to have public comment about it. And I try to explain that at every regular meeting, is that we do these things at the work session. We approve the regular meeting agenda so that the public has got 2 weeks to ask any question, make any inquiry, to make plans to show up, to express their opinion during public comment, to give every opportunity. Now, there are going to be occasions where some matter of urgency comes up that we have to act. When we do it in open session, we do it in front of the television cameras. So, the only thing about that is it doesn't give the public an opportunity to express their opinion if we vote at the work session. But I think usually we have enough discussion and explanation to demonstrate that to the public. So I just wanted to express those concerns. We can, and also, you know, do we need to have an informal comments from the board at our work sessions as a regular course of business? Does anybody have an opinion about that? We have that on our regular meeting agenda, but we don't have it as a formal part of our, but, you know, as far as I'm concerned, all that has to happen is somebody say, hey, I got something I want to say. Yeah. So that's something to think about. If, you know, we can continue that discussion at any time. So if yes, sir.
I have one that I wanted to bring up, and I can either add it to tonight, or I can do it as new business. I don't see why it'd be a problem. I attended the Logan community meeting this past couple Mondays ago. Got an event again Saturday. One of the biggest concerns is that they don't have any representation. So what I wanted to do was create a liaison position for the Logan community, and I wanted to take it. I'm open to suggestions or comments, but I hear it all the time, and I figured just make it the fourth Monday of every month at 6 o'clock at the Logan Community Center. And I'm very interested in taking that, but I can either tack it on at the regular meeting as new business, or depends on what everybody here thinks. I mean, I can make a motion on it tonight, whichever route. I mean, it's.
I just have a question. Does the city not have anybody going down there to the Logan community for their monthly meetings?
There were different departments there, like they were discussing the Lincoln Street Bridge this past one, so they had transportation. They had the design firm. There's a couple different departments, but, and I know they are city, but I was just looking at it as, it wouldn't hurt to create it. So, and I'm open those Mondays. I don't mind going. And I think it would be beneficial. The more places we can make and show our support, the better.
Just my opinion on it is our liaison positions are for communication purposes. It's to better inform this board about what's going on, whether it be in some of our organizations or our municipalities. And, you know, I don't think you can communicate too much. So, I mean, if you're volunteering to assume that role and be that, I mean, it doesn't come with any specific responsibilities other than just sharing information back and forth, which I think is a very positive thing. So I think we could do that informally, or we could do it and we could add it as a agenda item on our regular meeting agenda. Am I correct in that, Mr. Parliamentarian?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay,
No,
yeah.
no, not at all. Whenever you want to do it, it's fine.
Well, then I'd like to make a motion that we add a liaison position for the Logan community. And I would like to take that at least for the remainder of the year until we decide again next year.
Would you like to suspend the rules and make that motion at this meeting, or would you like to add that on to new business at the regular meeting?
I would like to suspend the rules and do that right now.
Okay, so do you make that in form of a motion?
Yes, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And if you would restate your motion, which was that,
Create a county commissioner liaison spot or position to the Logan community to attend their monthly meetings on the fourth Monday of each month.
to be filled by you for the remainder of
Of this year until it's voted on.
this
again.
calendar year.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Is there a second to that motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And any other discussion before we move to item 5?
Just one, more of a request. Our law enforcement, EMS, fire, can we not push them earlier in the agenda? I don't know how we decide how they're in there, but I mean, they are at the front line, and we don't know if they were out all night on a fire, or if they were working a double shift, or some of our sheriffs were out all night on various things. So when they're coming, is there a way we can move them up in the agenda so that they kind of go first a little bit?
Generally use the alphabet, so I'm happy to do whatever.
Okay, because I mean, some of them have to leave here and go on duty as well. So rather than to tie them up for, lengths of time, I think it would be wise, if anybody doesn't have a problem with that. I think it's just, as a courtesy.
So what if we did A to Z one meeting and Z to A the next meeting? To take, rather than placing the responsibility on the clerk to arbitrarily decide who goes first, what would you think of that?
That's fine, I mean,
What would you think of that? Would that make it a little
Yeah,
easier for you
typically
not
it's-
having to pick and choose?
Yeah, I think, I'll speak for you a little bit, Lauren, but I think most of the ones from law enforcement that come to speak, they're administration. They're not the ones answering the calls. What they will do, they do get called out. But then you got Laura from Human Services has sat over there for 4 hours or 3 hours and a half the same way. So we try to be fair. If we know it's a hot topic, or if we know they have an issue or another responsibility or engagement, then we will move them up at their request. But
Yeah, and if they ask ever that if they need to be moved, I'm absolutely accommodating. I just start with alphabetical order and we go from there.
whatever the board
Yeah, I'm happy to do
chooses, we can
whatever.
do it, yeah, it's fine, so.
That's just a good suggestion,
Mhm.
because they are here, and there's been nights we've been here a lot longer than this, and they may have to go back on shift or came off shift, or some of the the other deputies that come along with them sometimes.
Right, sure.
Might be in that situation. Same with EMS and, fire that have come in.
Okay, anything else? If not, you all have a copy of the regular meeting agenda before you. I do not think we have made any changes. There are a couple of the items. We still have the compensation item, even though we approved a piece of that, we still got the other piece. We covered your motion, Kenny. So, hearing no changes, I would entertain a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda and schedule the needed public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. That motion passes. And at this time, unless there are other items, I would entertain, we do not have need of a closed session, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. We stand adjourned. Thank you all. And thank you for those watching online.